Hello, and welcome to episode 102 of Flix and a Six. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Costanzo, with me forever and always, the man, the myth, the best goddamn bartender from Timbuktu to Portland, Maine, or Portland, Oregon, for that matter, Alessandro Bielsi. Say hello, Al.
Today the unthinkable happened, and I won a Twitter argument.
Ooh, wow, I want to get into that. Also joining us, you might remember her from her previous episodes, you might know her as the resident of Room 237, Gianna Bielsi. Say hello, Gianna.
Hi.
On this week's episode, things that should be remade, things that shouldn't be remade, other news and nuggets, all before diving into our flick of the week, The Shining. But first, Al, what are we drinking?
We are drinking... Sorry, I have to get the right area of can. Toppling Goliath. I wrote the entirely wrong on the page. Toppling Goliath Brewing's Pseudo Sue Pale Ale.
Pseudo Sue.
Sorry, it sounded more. I was thinking the way you're doing that. I was thinking of was it Sue Studio?
That's what I did.
Oh yeah, well, you do it better.
Wow.
Brewing up history with Field Museum. The writing on this can is really confusing.
Yeah, it's all in the letters are all different sizes and things are sideways. It's tough.
Like field is one word, but it's on two lines, which is why I thought Pseudo Sue was one word, but it's not. I looked it up online, and it's actually two words: Pseudo Sue.
Not the real Sue, but a pseudo.
Exactly,
Sue.
Fake Sue.
I gotcha.
This
Fake
single hop pale ale showcases the Citra hop for a well balanced beer that is delicate in body with a mild bitterness in the finish. Ferocious.
Citra hops.
What?
That's how I feel about Citra hops.
I know. Ferocious hop aromas of citrus and mango give a refreshing taste that is bright with just enough bite.
This beer smells fantastic.
Would you say that it has a ferocious hop aroma?
Oh, it does kind of smell
It's got a wonderful can art. And is this Pseudo Sue like a Jurassic Park clone raptor reference?
I guess so, but I don't know what the reference is. I was wondering that myself, and then I forgot to look it up.
A dinosaur named Sue. Sue was cloned. Pseudo Sue.
A boy named Sue?
Cheers. Let's give this one a taste.
Oh, yeah. Gee, you gotta cheers, damn it.
What, G?
No, wrong glass.
It's like it's your first time or something.
Just clink yourself.
Yeah, well, you can't actually clink through the
It's so lonely over here.
So.
G's on fire today.
If that's what you call it.
Very fire. This is tasty. This is it's a lot more mellow than I expected it to be.
To be honest, I'm disappointed with how ferocious the aroma of hops is.
Yeah.
I would say that this is like a mild annoyance of hop aroma, not full,
not all up in your grill.
not fully ferocious. It smells good though. It tastes delightful.
It's tasty. It's not. Like I said, I thought it was gonna be a much stronger flavor, but it's a little bit more on the mellow side. But I really like it. It's
I would say that it is a refreshing taste that is bright with just enough bite.
Like, what is it like? Supposed to be like citrusy or like?
Yeah. Did you not hear me reading?
No, I guess zoned out because you were like choppy. It smells citrusy though.
Ferocious hop aromas of citrus and mango.
Well, they did that very well.
Would you say that you have enjoyed what little of it you tasted before, considering you requested White Claw for this episode?
I did request White Claw, but yes, I do like it actually.
I should have called you White Claw in the intro.
Yeah, we set you up.
That's a good name. That's the
White Claw.
It sounds like a medieval warrior name.
Bear Claw. Josh Gad's best worst role.
Oh my god, what a tremendous role!
It drove me nuts every time he was on it.
I loved it.
He's also like, is he holding his eyes like cross-eyed the entire time? Like, what's going on there? He's doing something with his face. It's very disturbing. I think it also could just be maybe he doesn't blink. That might be what it is. He might not blink the entire time.
He is just too intense. This beer, though...
What's Gianna doing? I think her head's going to explode.
This beer, though, came in a pint, which we love.
It did.
We love on this show.
I like when it comes in pints because I can usually stretch it through most of the episode.
Well, I'm only getting 2/3 of it, so I'm going to have a side beer later, so is Jay.
And that's fair. That's fair.
A
little side beer.
I think it's 6.8% alcohol by volume because I looked it up online before we got started, and I think that's what I saw, but it's not on the can, which is disappointing. But I do really dig this. I think it's a Velociraptor. Maybe it's a T-Rex. Whatever it is.
It's more T-Rexy.
It's pretty great.
It's got more volume.
Yeah. Would you say that this?
Choose this one.
Would you say it's juicy? This dinosaur's pretty juicy.
Yeah.
This dinosaur is as juicy as the beer itself.
Pretty voluptuous.
Did you choose this one with the dinosaur because the last time she was on was Jurassic Park?
No, she just said that though. Like, oh, why didn't we do this for Jurassic World? I said, I don't know, because we did that like a year ago, and because I got this.
Yeah, we didn't
I
have
got this beer like 3 months ago.
You could have researched.
That's true. Although the beer we did last week was from 7 years ago, so that's.
It was not 7 years.
Oh right, it was 2.
Yeah, it was probably like 2.
Shall we get into some news and nuggets?
Sure.
How many you got this week? Approximately.
I have 3 news, one of which will be a reading. And then we're going to do some what we're watching that's more tailored towards Gianna.
Thank you.
Okay. Give us a...
You're on the microphone, right? Stop whispering.
No, I have like a cold, so like I just can't get anything out.
I'm going to scratch. Just a little scratch. Give us a new.
Okay. Right. Let's do a new about the Batman. Which, according to Kevin Smith, will be based on the Long Halloween story arc.
Yes! Oh, I did not know that was happening.
I'm surprised
because is that for real?
I figured you would have heard it because this came out a few days ago. I've been sitting on this news for a few days. I will do a abbreviated reading here. We don't know much about what Matt Reeves is planning for his Batman movie, but one thing that he keeps saying is that it will be a dark noir thriller that will heavily feature Batman in detective mode. We'll finally get to see Batman as the world's greatest detective. We also know that there will be...
I'm the world's greatest detective.
We also know that there will be multiple villains involved. According to Kevin Smith, the story for the film will be based on the classic comic book story arc, The Long Halloween. During his latest episode of Fat Man Beyond, Smith's co-host Mark Bernardin addressed reports that this movie will adopt that story arc, to which Smith responded, "To be fair, I heard it too, and I heard it from a good source too."
That's fantastic. That's really exciting. That makes me very happy.
He has a lot of ties to the entertainment industry and DC Entertainment, and for him to say that he's heard that info from a good source says there actually could be truth to this. The Long Halloween was written by Jeff Loeb with artwork by Tim Sale, and the story is set during the early days of Batman's crime-fighting career as a killer is murdering people during the holidays. It takes place over the course of a year and includes several of Batman's rogue gallery of villains. Here is the synopsis. Christmas, St. Patrick's Day, Easter. As the calendar's days stack up, so do the bodies littered in the streets of Gotham City. A murderer is loose, killing only on holidays. The only man that can stop the fiend, the Dark Knight. In a mystery taking place during Batman's early days of crime fighting, Batman the Long Halloween is one of the greatest Dark Knight stories ever told. Working with District Attorney Harvey Dent and Lieutenant James Gordon, Batman races against the calendar as he tries to discover who Holiday is before he claims his next victim each month. A mystery that has the reader continually guessing the identity of the killer. This story also ties into the events that transform Harvey Dent into Batman's deadly enemy, Two-Face.
Yeah, it's so good. If you haven't gotten a chance to read that, I suggest you do so. I read that a few years ago, and I really enjoyed it.
I have not read it, but my guess would have just been that is Holiday not Calendar Man?
I'm just gonna... let's just let folks... I don't want to ruin anything. It's because it's one of my favorites. So I just suggest reading it. We could talk about it all.
Gianna, no, you're not a big Batman fan. Were you aware that there is, in fact, a villain named Calendar Man?
I did not, actually.
Killer who's only killing on holidays. That would be my bet.
Yeah, the transformation of Harvey is I think the building out of that character and that kind of influenced his character arc in Dark Knight a lot.
Okay.
The way that they just like work with that character specifically, because they did a tremendous job in that movie, and I feel like there was a tremendous job done with him in that specific run. So heavy influence there, but like that's probably when I think you had asked me a few weeks ago when we were talking about the Joker movie, like what favorites were, and I brought up Long Halloween.
Yeah, that does sound familiar. But either way, I figured that this would be an interesting story to you. I guess I figured you would have seen or heard of it because I know that you listen to at least some of his podcasts, right?
Yeah, I haven't listened to Fat Man Beyond in a while, but it's just he puts out so much content.
Yeah.
It's a little difficult to keep up with everything.
How many podcasts does he have now? Does he have like 3?
If not more. I mean, there's Hollywood Babylon, Smodcast, Fat Man Beyond, Edumacation. I don't know how many of those are still going or like how often they are running, but I really enjoy Hollywood Babylon.
I forgot that's the one that you listen to the most often.
Yeah, but oh my god, my podcast list has built up I haven't like listened as religiously over the past few months, so like I have got like this crazy backlog, so it's been difficult because I keep up mostly with the gaming ones.
I had that issue
because that's where I get most of my gaming news.
I had that issue recently with work, and then I did 2 straight weeks where I was working overnight every day. In which case I had all the time to listen because I was spending most of my time alone inside of a department store ceiling. So I pretty much had the freedom to listen to whatever I wanted to at 3 in the morning, 5 in the morning, covered in insulation and dirt. So
I hope at some point you were playing music and you just like really feeling the music and started dancing to it, and then somewhere you're on some security footage just breaking it down.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of security footage of me just from the waist down because, you know, from the waist up I was inside the ceiling.
That's pretty great.
Standing very precariously on top of a scissor lift 25 feet in the air.
Nice. What could go wrong?
Yeah, no, a lot of things, actually.
Who's going to put Humpty Dumpty back together again? Yeah. That's what I want to know. Gianna, are you going to be there?
Wow. You don't even look at the phone that time. Can you listen to us?
No, I was listening, but, like, yeah.
If I fell off
Gianna, what podcasts do you listen to, if any?
Call Her Daddy on Barstool.
What is that?
Yeah. It's the best one.
What is that?
It's like what every college age.
He wasn't asking me what it is. I don't.
Oh no, I'm just saying it's like what every college age girl listens to.
What is the show about?
They just talk about like boys and drinking and all that sort of stuff.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's
not your kind of audience.
I'm not a fan of Barstool's work.
College Girl, the podcast. That's basically what it is.
That's what it should be called.
Basic
that's what it should be called. Yes. Awesome. Very excited about the Long Halloween. Hoping that's actually what happens there. I wonder if it'll be like one of those things where it's heavily influenced, or if it's an adaptation.
Well, that's what it said below. Is it feels like it's the type of thing where they're drawing on it very much like thematically, but not doing a direct adaptation of it.
That's fine too, because if they want to write, do their own original story type.
Well, that's what a lot of the best comic movies on both like DC and Marvel have been, is drawing from the best of the best. The greatest hits of some of these things without doing just a strict adaptation of any one storyline.
Yeah. Speaking of Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween. We've talked about this before. I think until the Phantom Thread, I think I said that Halloween 2 was the worst movie I had ever seen. And then that was surpassed by Roma. So Halloween 2 is the third worst movie I've ever seen.
I forgot that you hate Roma more than you hate Phantom Thread.
I absolutely do.
Those are some good episodes you should listen to. Us complaining about those.
I've gone. You can go back and listen. I've gone off on Halloween 2 numerous times. Yes. Because I did like the first one. I liked the first one that he did. Well, his first one a lot. Okay. I thought it was really good. And there's a little bit of buzz going on with him right now. 3 from Hell had a trailer that dropped, which is the third movie in his like Devil's Rejects kind of franchise deal there. Yeah. Which I'll see, because I find his movies to be interesting. I actually think they're pretty good. They're cringy and a little bit difficult to watch. That's the point with some of the stuff that he does. But the first 2, I thought they were pretty good. So I'm interested in seeing this. And what the article was going into was how miserable of an experience he had making Halloween and Halloween 2 because of the wine scenes. It was like a very difficult and annoying time. And he said the first movie was horrible to make, but it did so well that he thought that they were like, during that time it was like, don't screw this up, and that's why it was so bad. So when he inevitably agreed to do the second, he thought it would be better, but it turned out, then it became, don't screw up this thing that's already doing so well, and it just like, couldn't do it the way he wanted to, or maybe he did, but it was like frustrated the entire time, and I think that translates well to the movie that, you're up to date on Schitt's Creek?
No, I saw the first 4 seasons. I haven't had a chance to sit down and watch the 5th because I can't watch it on my phone unless I'm going to watch it 1 minute at a time. So
fair enough. More on that later. But it's basically the movie that Moore is making, The Crows Have Eyes 3. Oh, yeah. That's what Halloween 2 feels like to me. And that tracks with what he was saying about making it, which I think was kind of interesting. So I'm curious to see I am curious to see his next movie.
It seems like that's the case a lot with those things that aren't necessarily planned as being franchises that just blow expectations out of the water, and then they like force you to continue making them because,
right?
And they're like, but then they're like, don't kill the golden goose, but at the same time, they keep throwing axes at the golden goose,
right?
And like you have to try to both nurture the golden goose and protect it from being killed at the same time.
Do great things again with the same thing. Go. Don't screw it up.
Just do the same
do it right
thing.
now. Right now. Do it right now. Don't screw it up. That's what their producers are like.
Just do everything exactly the same all over again. Do it the way you did last time.
Just put a 2 on it and just release it again. I wish they would do that one day.
I was going more for the 22 Jump Street joke.
Yeah.
Just do the same thing over again, guys.
Korean Jesus doesn't have time for your problems. What's the next thing on your list of news and nuggets?
I think you've said you haven't watched the show yet, but the show is so good that we're going to talk about it anyway. Fargo Season 4 is announcing its casting, and Timothy Olyphant just joined the cast for the 4th season.
I feel like he pops up in everything.
Yeah, well, he's done some work.
The show with Matt Landry.
Yes, that was in Season 2. Justified star Timothy Olyphant is returning to FX with a key role in the upcoming 4th installment of the network's anthology series Fargo, headlined by Chris Rock, which I actually either didn't know or forgot about that because I think it's been like 2 years since the 3rd season came out. Created, written, directed, and executive produced by Noah Hawley, who also serves as showrunner. Season 4 is set in 1950 in Kansas City, Missouri. The locale serves as the crossroads and collisions of 2 migrations, Southern Europeans from countries like Italy and African Americans who left the South in great numbers to escape Jim Crow, both fighting for a piece of the American dream. In Kansas City, 2 criminal syndicates, one Italian, led by Donatello Fada, one African American, led by Loy Cannon, played by Chris Rock, have struck an uneasy peace, with the heads of both families having cemented by trading their youngest sons. Oliphant plays a character named Dick Deffy Wickware in a major recurring
role.
Dick Wickware with Deffy, D-E-A-F-Y in quotations. I guess that's his nickname.
Where did you get that nickname from?
I guess we'll find out in Season 4 of Fargo.
If you have to ask.
In addition to...
I don't know what that means.
In addition to Rock, Oliphant joins previously cast Jack Houston, Jason Schwartzman, Ben Whishaw, Jesse Buckley, Salvatore Esposito, Andrew Bird. Thank you.
Can we just have you on every episode to do things like that?
Just constantly.
You could just be like our living soundboard.
Oh, I like that show.
Santa Clarita Diet?
I did, actually.
We didn't get there yet.
I'm sorry. I reread.
Jeremy Harris, Gaetano Bruno, Angie White, Francesco Acquarali, Amiri Crutchfield, Amber Mid-Thunder, and Yuzo Aduba. It is
I like her.
She's awesome.
I don't actually know her.
She's from Orange is the New Black.
Okay. It's
Suzanne.
Production begins this fall in Chicago for premiere on FX in 2020.
Pseudo Suzanne.
Getting to the point that Gianna wanted to jump to. Oliphant, been nominated for a starring role in FX's drama series Justified, is coming off a 3-season run in a co-starring role opposite Drew Barrymore on Netflix's Santa Clarita Diet. He also recently starred and executive produced HBO's Deadwood the Movie. And he can currently be seen in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I forgot that he was in that.
Yeah. This is a good character. You said you're a fan of Fargo. Is that one of the ones that I need to have on my list, or wouldn't be?
Definitely watch Fargo. It's really good. The first season and the second season are like incredible. The third season is very good. It's an anthology in that the cast is new every season, and it takes place in a different time and place, but they are all within the same universe. And characters and storylines, either directly or through...
like histories and things like that.
Either directly or through mentioning... Like, in the first season... what's his name? Alison Tolman plays a cop, and her father is played by Keith Carradine. And in the second season, it takes place, 30 years earlier, and there's a young girl who plays young Alison Tolman... and younger Keith Carradine is played by Patrick Wilson. And then in that season as well, there was someone else. There was a reference to someone else who shows up in another part of the timeline or whatever. And both of those take place in a similar area of Fargo and Bemidji and all those areas up north. I actually forget exactly where the third season took place. If it was in the same place, that was like present day. The first season I think was supposed to take place in 2006 or something like that. And the second season was in the 70s.
Oh, okay. So we're going backwards.
Yeah. So this is going to be the furthest back in the timeline.
Now, have you seen the movie?
Yes.
The movie, I imagine, does it just take place in the same universe?
I don't actually think they canonically take place in the same universe.
Interesting.
The Coens wrote and directed that, and they also executive produced the show. But maybe they have some actual contribution, but to my knowledge, they're not part of the nitty gritty all the time. Noah Hawley is the guy who writes directs it and all that.
Same in name and style, but not.
Yeah, it's meant to be. It's similar, although technically they halfway through the season canonically became part of the same universe. But I was gonna say similar to What We Do in the Shadows, where it's meant to be thematically the same, but then.
Gotcha.
The three of them from the movie cameoed in one episode late in the first season. Actually, was it the finale? It was one of the last couple episodes of the finale of the season. So, I think it's. Yes. I don't think it's supposed to be. It's just supposed to be the same tone and concept of kind of relatively normal people getting swept up into big criminal things that they shouldn't really be a part of.
That's cool. Do you have what's another movie that you'd like to see get that treatment?
Oh, that's a good question.
I feel like there's probably something fantastic that we could think of that would really shine.
Spiritually, it's been done a million times, but one of my first thoughts would be The Departed. But there's been a million shows.
I knew you were going to say that.
There's been a million shows that have done that, including the one that I think the first season already might have ended, and I wanted to get to it, and I haven't got to it yet. City on the Hill, which is on Showtime.
Okay,
I think that aired over the summer.
Yeah, that could be cool.
Kevin Bacon.
But that's interesting because it's The Departed is part of an existing. I feel I have not seen Fargo, movie or show, but it almost seems like being successful in doing the show, it's kind of its own genre.
Yeah,
whereas The Departed wouldn't really fall into that category. I feel like because it's been done to death as a style or type of movie or TV show.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure there's a million other things you could do.
We're going to have a new segment called Homework, and we're going to come back next time with an answer to this question.
I guess we should do produce a show. That's what the segment could be?
we disappear for a few months, and we come back. We have a pilot.
We've been picked up by HBO.
Oh, man. Cool. So, Mortal Kombat has started production.
Oh, yeah. I just saw something about it the other day and had completely forgotten that they were doing that again.
What are your thoughts on that?
Is it a show or a movie?
It's a movie.
Did we get any casting yet?
That's a good question. I don't know. Let me pull that up real quick. Were you a fan of the originals?
For my part at that time when it came out and when I was seeing it, and it was the time when I would get to play the game once or twice a year when we would be by you. I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was fun. It's very bad, but I thought it was fun.
Oh yeah, it's a garbage pile of a movie. It's we've talked about Bad Movie Night before on the show. This is Mortal Kombat is a movie that would fits the criteria.
I don't know if it does though, because I think it might be a good bad movie.
It's not though. You have fond memories of watching it. I have watched it more recently. Okay, it's not a good bad movie. Okay, it's a rough movie.
Because typically good bad movies are exempt from bad movie nights.
That's true. If you were to pick between this, it would be and Street Fighter. Street Fighter would be the clear winner for bad movie night.
Yeah, that's probably true. I've seen a couple of clips, but I haven't actually seen it.
It's not the movie's not supposed to have any redeeming qualities. I dare say that the song is a redeeming quality, so maybe it wouldn't fit the criteria.
Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Don't they use that for goal songs and hockey and shit like that?
Probably. It's wonderful. The second movie is ridiculous. I'm interested. I feel like it could be a fun movie to remake and have and like going at it with having a good time, like not trying to be overly serious about it.
I think fun is probably the operative word. If it's not fun, then there's no point in trying to make the movie. Like, they need to lean into being as ridiculous as possible, which is part of why I felt like it worked as a good bad movie, was they leaned into it being super cheesy.
Yeah, could you imagine if they took like a super serious route? You'd come out of that movie being like, what?
Basically like a bad version of Karate Kid.
Oh my god. Yes. Oh my god, it would be absurd. I don't know. I'm excited to see where that goes. It's not when I hear they're remaking Mortal Kombat, I'm not up in arms about that. I'm like, all right, let's see where that goes.
That was a good transition.
Yeah. So thank you. So in other news, there's buzz about a Princess Bride remake, which is just a horrendous idea.
I think it's. But I don't see it.
Oh, man.
I don't think it needs
Gianna,
to be done.
I thought we were actually going to have you on the rest of the show, but you've been cut.
I don't think it needs to be done, but I feel like I'd see it just to, like, you know, with an open mind, unlike you're going to go into it with.
That's fair. I mean, I'm completely wrong by hating on something before it exists.
Sure.
I accept that. I'm not changing my mind, but
I think the special effects in it
I'm proving my ignorance here. The special effects could be cool. It could take a different... I just feel like what makes that movie so special is the cast of characters and their chemistry together.
That's true.
And also, low-key great script.
Yeah, it was tremendous.
They're just going to keep... yeah, they're going to, like...
The thing is, when you're remaking a movie, it should be one of only a couple of reasons. One, it's a movie that had a great premise that was lost to incompetence or just time. Like, it didn't hit to a big audience. It maybe had, like, a bit of a cult, like, following, but not, like... didn't become super mainstream. Something that's super old and that, like, having new technology or a new take on it or a modernizing of the story would make sense. Or 3, if it's something that was like an indie film that you wanted to make as a more big budget thing. And none of those 3 things applies to this. It's only 30 something years old, or I guess almost 40 years old, whatever. It's not something that making it big budget or bigger budget is going to vastly improve. And it's an actual classic movie. It is an excellent movie in its own right. So you're not improving upon the material. You're just hoping you can be as good.
Right. And it's just like, what's the... well, that's the thing. It's like, if you go into that movie and you remake it and you change anything, it's going to be like, why?
Yeah. There's no... I don't want to call it a perfect movie the way I did with Cloud Atlas a couple episodes ago. But it's really not that far away. Like, really, what would you substantially improve?
It's wonderful.
There's no fatal flaws to that movie in any way, shape, or form.
The weird pig thing. They could improve that.
You mean the rodent of unusually large size?
Yes, that thing. They could improve that.
The weird pig thing. That maybe that one particular... If they spent the entire movie budget just to computer generate that scene... and then the rest of the movie's the same. All right, that could be funny.
You completely, your punchline completely got cut out.
What's that?
I said your punchline got completely cut out.
Oh.
We both are just sitting here like, oh, he looks so happy.
But yes, I agree. But if you're gonna do that, just like Lucasify the RULSs. Like, don't.
Yeah.
Like
RUSs.
Unusually large size. RULS.
Rodents of unusual size, I thought it was.
I thought it was RULS, rodents of unusually large size.
I think it's ROUS.
I don't know, maybe it is.
Huh. I could be wrong. The thing is, you can't. There's certain things that, like, the Mandy Patinkin delivering that line can't be done by somebody else. Billy Crystal can't be done by somebody else. Like, that's. I mean, like,
honestly, you should just have him reprise the role. Probably
that would be amazing. Yeah, that would be the redeeming quality of the movie, is having him come back, or like Carrie Elways is like maybe like a little bit like older makeup on, and he's the grandpa reading the story. Like, that could be kind of fun too.
That would be cool.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is like even those two, like the grandfather and grandson, are like perfectly like well cast. Like, you're not really doing better than the rest of the main cast. They all pulled their weight. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know what improvement you're making on it. Like it's not even something that you could do like a quote unquote modernizing because it's meant to be like a Tolkien-esque like fantasy like novel. Yeah. So it's not, you're not bringing that into the 21st century. It's going to be done in the same style. Yeah, unless you're going to do like Romeo plus Juliet and do it in like the streets of like LA. You know what I mean?
Oh my god. All it would do is make me just want to continue to rewatch the old one, but which is fine. More reasons to rewatch the old one.
Yeah,
fine by me. Carrie Always though had the greatest response to this, which his line was, "There's a shortage of perfect movies in this world. It would be a pity to damage this one," which is tremendous and a mic drop moment if there ever was one. Which is like, you can't make the movie after that. Like he won.
It's great because he really didn't even have to stretch the line that much.
He changed one word.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Anyway, I'm with him on that one. So, I'm going to let you take it away from here because we burned through my last two news because they coincided so nicely together.
It was a natural transition. And you're going to want to brace yourself for this one because it's a topic that was near and dear to our heart, especially much of last year during our recording of episodes.
Hey, hang on. Like, legit, am I going to be upset? Are you going to make me sad right now?
Not as sad as you might have been if this came out a year ago.
Okay.
From The Ringer, headline, Movie Pass is dead. For real this time. For real this time. R.I.P. a company that was too good to be true. The subscription service will shut down on Saturday. Its business plan never made any sense, but for a brief moment, it gave moviegoers a reason to go to the theater, no matter how bad the movie. September 14th, mark it down as the day going to see bad movies died. On Friday afternoon, MoviePass's parent company Helios and Matheson informed subscribers, apparently there were still subscribers, that the service would be shutting down because its efforts to recapitalize MoviePass have not been successful to date. It's unclear what will happen to the movie theater subscription service next. Helios could sell off the company and its assets, including MoviePhone and MoviePass Films, which, incredibly and fittingly, had a hand in financing John Travolta's sublimely good-bad film Gotti, or it could simply shutter the service and hang on to the user data it harvested over the past 3 years.
I think what's funny here is, like, even if a person that has gone bankrupt 1,000 times would probably look at this plan and go, that doesn't make any financial sense.
Yep.
And, I mean, yeah. It's not surprising at all. I get what they were trying to do.
G, were you familiar
not surprising.
with MoviePass?
I wasn't, actually.
Okay, so what it was is...
It sounds familiar, though.
A subscription service that you paid, what was it, like $10 a month?
$10 a month.
$10 a month, and you can go see as many movies as you want per month.
Sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yes. It also sounds like, as Anthony said, there's no way that this could possibly work as a business.
There's like another company that does that too, though.
Well, all of the things, and we'll hear about that in this later on in this article, all of the big chains like AMC, like Cinemark, like all those things, like Regal, they came up with their own versions of this that were priced much more appropriately to actually be able to make money.
Cinemark's is clutch.
Yeah, well, that's not.
That's the one I have now.
As big of a chain though as like something like Regal or like AMC, because like
it's not.
I was say I've only ever heard of the one by you, so.
Yeah, there's a few, but over here, but like they're if you're near one, if it's your theater, like it's in my opinion, it's the best deal because I'm paying $9.98 a month for I get the ticket, I get one ticket with that. I get 20% off concessions, and every ticket I buy is that price.
Okay.
So, and like, and up to 2
it have
tickets
like
at
a
a time.
reward
So, like, if me and Kim go to the movies,
like,
and I've already used my credit for that month.
Doesn't it have like a rewards thing too for you, like turning off your phone and shit like that?
They used to have that. They don't do that anymore. Okay. You get points now, like for other things.
Okay.
I like that though.
Continuing on. This day has been a long time coming. To be more specific, this day has more or less been coming since July 27th, 2018, the day of Mission Impossible Fallout's release, when thousands of users were unable to access the service. Up until that point...
Oh my god, that's great.
Up until that point, MoviePass had been the key to unlocking a movie-going utopia. A cheat code of sorts that, at its peak, cost only $9.95 a month to see an unlimited amount of movies in theaters. But the service failure of July 27th laid bare many of the company's flaws, and confirmed that what basically everyone suspected, but had quelled with an endless amount of ticket stubs and popcorn, that MoviePass was too good to be true. As the company's Twitter account assured users that the app was simply experiencing technical issues, in reality, MoviePass had been locked out of using its line of credit by its bank.
That's incredible.
That weekend was a realization that we can't necessarily provide the service we had been providing, which was unlimited. Every movie all the time. MoviePass's then Executive Vice President Khalid Edom told me in January. Edom left the company in March. Despite multiple relaunches, restructuring of payment plans, and rebrands, shout out the director of marketing. There's a link to that, and I don't know what it is. I haven't read it.
Don't click that.
The company never recovered after that day. Subscriber numbers plummeted, competitors like AMC Stubbs A-List emerged, and MoviePass continued to falter and face criticism over allegedly barring users from canceling their subscriptions and over leaving thousands of credit card numbers exposed because a critical server wasn't password protected.
That's incredible.
Right?
What a garbage fire. This is insane.
That the service is officially ending is less surprising than the fact that it made it this far into 2019. But while MoviePass's legacy will undoubtedly be colored by these grand failures, it's hard not to take this shuddering the same way you would your dumbest but most loyal and idealistic friend moving away. MoviePass's business plan made 0 sense. Literally. It was like a bank giving you $1 for every 25 cents you deposit, was how Wedbush Securities analyst Michael Pachter explained it to me in January. But it also created a brief moment in time when using it felt like getting away with a crime and a sense of community amongst users. Just a bunch of low-rent criminals going to see The Snowman.
Yeah. That's amazing. There was a period of time where, Gianna, you're probably not familiar with this, but there was maybe a 12-episode span of our MoviePass check-in because I refused to believe that it was going to work.
You definitely got your money worth.
Oh yeah, the first I bought it as soon as I heard about it. I was like, this isn't gonna work. I'll bite, and I tried it, and it worked. And I was like, holy shit, I got a movie ticket. And then I tried it again, and I was like, oh my god. And then I kept doing it, and it kept working, and I was like, this can't be right. And then I inevitably switched to Cinemark's plan long before this had gone downhill, just because I want to keep the theaters open. And and I thought they had a pretty great deal, so I switched well before that. But still, anytime we heard news on that, it was just like, this is about right.
Well, that's why I figured we had to do this, what's it called, eulogy for it. More importantly, it raised real questions about the efficacy of the theater-going business, whether the system we currently have, the system that won out, is really best for consumers. MoviePass's success, which quickly hit a level that threatened to put them out of business, is evidence theater-goers are interested in a different model than what traditional exhibitors like AMC offer. And the company's effects on the industry can be seen during both its swell and decline. In 2018, the year of MoviePass's explosion, box office sales were up 7% for a record-breaking total of $11.9 billion. This year, the box office is currently off that pace by 6.3%, despite record-breaking gains by movies like Avengers Endgame and The Lion King. In a January interview, MoviePass CEO Mitch Lowe claimed that the company had accounted for 6% of all ticket sales in the first half of 2018. And while MoviePass clearly didn't have the capital to be purchasing that many tickets and then selling them back to users at an extreme discount, it was at least onto something. As far as industry disruptors go, the first ones to do it are rarely the last ones. Cinemia, one of MoviePass's first competitors, also folded this year. Some company may figure out how to do the movie ticket subscription service in the future, but it will be on the back of MoviePass's successes and its failures. 2 weeks ago, 15 days before the death of MoviePass, The Fanatic was released, a movie directed by Fred Durst of Limp Bizkit, in which John Travolta plays a deranged stalker with a bad haircut. It looks horrible. Oh, God. By all accounts, it was horrible, but I wouldn't know. The only way I would have seen that thing is if a tech company gone wrong had basically paid me to.
That's wonderful. This is, if you paused there and ended that story with, it was 7 days in hell, I would believe that it was one of those mockumentaries on HBO. What if it was just some crazy rich person that just wanted to keep the movies alive? Who really just disrupt the industry?
I mean, there are worse passion projects, I guess.
Taking one for the team. Taking a few million for the team. That's insane. It's insane that it went on this long.
It's like the type of thing that shouldn't have lasted more than 6 months.
Yeah, like in the first week, the bank should have been like, "Where are you gonna pay for this from? Like, how is this gonna happen?"
There's so many times that someone should have stopped them. The bank should not have allowed them that much capital to begin with. Your plan is to buy tickets for $15 to $20, and then give them to your users for free, and they're only going to pay you $10 a month, but you're going to be giving them 1 to 10 tickets a month.
Right.
Because if you use 1 ticket a month, they're still losing money.
Yes.
And as soon as you start...
The only way that they're not losing money is if you don't use the service.
And even then, they're still not making enough money to justify. Like, they're still not at their break-even point.
Yeah.
And then...
What if it was a different scam, and they set this up, and the app just never worked, and then they ran with the money? It was 1 month of subscribers.
I mean,
that would have been more realistic.
Businesses that have done that. That's basically what Big Baller Brand, Lonzo Ball's shoe company, did.
Oh my god. This is just absurd. Well, rip Movie Pass. Rip. What else you got?
Let's do some what we're watching, because Gianna kind of got shut out a lot of that. So let's talk about 3 different things that Gianna was, or will be watching.
Ooh.
Okay.
Go ahead, you get to drive.
Oh, okay. So I've been watching Shameless.
Okay.
I'm like 3 episodes in, so...
2.
From the beginning, or you are a fan of the show?
Oh, no, from the new season that's out.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're a fan of this show? Do you watch this too, Al?
I don't know.
Oh.
Is Anthony the one watching it, or is that Alex Firestone?
No, I think my buddy Schaefer watches it.
No.
Yes, 100%. He loves that show.
Wow.
You do know that he occasionally listens to the show, right?
Hi, Schaefer.
That's fantastic. It's a show that I don't watch. I don't know really anything about it. It just seems like it's a show about horrible people.
Yeah, it makes you want to become a criminal. It's kind of nice.
A criminal?
Criminal. I'm sorry.
Criminal.
I was like kind of.
You're halfway there.
You just Rugratified that.
Oh my god!
They're all like scam artists. It's a great show. You know.
I think we need a which Rugrat are you quiz.
That'd be good.
I'll have to get that in the works. All right, so how's that so far? Were you 4 episodes in, you said?
Yeah, I want to say like 3 or 4 episodes in. I like it.
Wait,
it's good.
Is the season that far in, or is the season much further ahead?
No, it's on Netflix that just got released.
So this came out. This is the season from last year, then, or earlier this year.
I think
whatever?
so. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just a few episodes in.
What was this, like the 7th season or something like that?
I'm not
Jesus.
sure. I want to say 8 actually.
Okay, that was close.
That's insane. I didn't realize that show had been on that long.
Yeah, it was one that I wasn't really familiar with until around like the 4th season. Like I didn't even.
Yeah,
know
I didn't know about it till much later into it. Yeah, it's on season.
How did you get into it?
How did I get into it?
Yeah.
Oh, all my friends watch it. It's just like one of those things.
Okay.
And finally, I was just like, okay, I guess I'll watch it. And I like.
Fine, I'll be part of the conversation.
This looks stupid, and then I watched it. I was like, oh, like they're all criminals. This is kind of great.
How quickly did you get into it?
Was it like I'm gonna watch this whole season tonight?
Yeah, like I got into it pretty quickly. Most shows I'm not like that with, but like it's just very fast paced. So.
Or is it a half hour show?
It's an hour.
Oh.
Interesting. An hour show that you get into that quickly is actually pretty impressive.
It's very fast paced. It's about like a family that the dad's like
Sucks.
a crazy drug addict, and they're all like, they're all just crazy because of it, because they all are trying to pay the rent for the house and whatever, and they have like a little sibling that they're trying to take care of too. So like they're all doing their own sort of deal to try and like make money and survive and shit. It's kind of fun.
To a certain extent, it strikes me as like a slightly more realistic version of Always Sunny, but like one family, including like kids and adults, you know what I mean? Where it's like, what's the scheme we're going to do this week? You know what I mean? Like gang, you know what I mean? Like, but obviously Always Sunny is very heightened and hyperbolic, and like, you know, it sounds like this is slightly more grounded.
Like, It's Always Sunny is Seinfeld on a fever dream, and Shameless is Seinfeld on crack.
Yes.
Well, only some of them.
The dad specifically. What's his name?
William H. Macy.
Yes, William H. Macy on crack.
Also, Dee and Dennis get addicted to crack twice on Always Sunny.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware.
I've never watched that show.
Oh, that show is so great. You gotta watch
I feel like
that.
I should. Everyone I was talking about
the new season starts next week.
You know what? I'm not sure. I think I've only gotten up to the third or fourth season, and then I've seen like sporadic episodes here and there. My problem with that show, it's not really necessarily a problem. I enjoy it. I find it very funny. I can't watch more than 2 episodes.
Oh yeah, I found when I was binging it and I was going through like 11 seasons at that time, or 10 seasons, because I was watching it a lot at work. So I would have to like watch it in like 15-minute increments, and then I'd have to like dump the cache for like 5 minutes, like just be like, nope, this is so uncomfortable. I need to like walk away and think about something else for 5 minutes before I come back, because it's making me physically uncomfortable. Not just from laughing so hard, but just like, this is disgusting what these people do.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's like I feel. Oh, sorry.
What were we gonna say?
I said that's like a show I treated like How I Met Your Mother, like Friends, where you could just pick up anywhere and start watching. It's not something that I've ever really had a desire to like sit down and actually watch all the seasons.
The thing is, most
Friends
always
is so good.
Most Always Sunny episodes, you can just jump into that episode, but a lot of them carry like the threads through from like stuff that's going on, because there's recurring jokes, there's recurring characters.
I mean, so do like Friends and How I Met Your Mother, but like
exactly. Like those shows are and I think that's great. I love a show that's like that.
This one I found more so that like most of the time I could jump into most Friends episodes and like not know what's going on, and I'll be able to
still enjoy it.
This one, if you get the quote unquote wrong episode, you'll have no idea what's going on. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you can never tell when they're going to do, because there's some that are like crafted to be purely like one-off episodes. Like there's one where they're all in a gas station and it's getting robbed, and it's like each of them having like their own like fantasy of how they would like be the hero of the day. So there's really not anything other than like you have to know about like Charlie's infatuation with like the waitress. Like that's about all you would have to know for that. But that's something that's been going on from like the first couple episodes of the show. So
yeah, it just amplifies. It's really good. But if you are a fan of the show, it's incredible. Like that's like it's one of those things. Like any of the long running jokes in Friends, any of the long running jokes in How I Met, things like that. It's just it just adds. It plays to both audiences really well, which I think is it's probably very hard to do.
Yeah. But
I can imagine.
That one's definitely worth a watch for anyone who likes good comedy. It's just, you have to be aware that you're going to need to shower more than once a day sometimes after watching that show.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, so Shameless is what you're currently watching.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. What were the other 2 things?
Well, how about you talk about this one? What you want to be watching that's on tonight?
Oh, the new season of American Horror Story.
1984. They're doing it like all those 80s slasher flicks.
Okay, so that might be an American Horror Story season I can get into.
It seems like, well, the promotional material they're doing are like in like the theme of like all those ones, because one of them is like they're all like hanging out at like a summer camp and stuff, and then like a Jason-esque character pops up out of the water and starts knifing someone in a canoe. Like,
I like the idea this season. I haven't watched the last few, but just because I've been like they're like either like weirdly political or like I've tried like the hotel one I couldn't get into. Like I just thought that was stupid. The first few seasons I really liked, but I feel like I'd like this one.
Didn't you watch the whole Roanoke one?
I did. It was weird, but I still kind of liked it better than some of the other ones.
People are super into that show, and it was one of the ones where like you hear about all the time. I know tons of people that watch it. There's tons of personalities that talk about it, and then I was like, Kim and I were like, we'll give it a shot, and we watched an episode, and we were like, maybe it takes a minute, and then we watched like a couple more episodes, like, what is it about this that people are super drawn to, and then we just gave up.
Which season?
The first one.
Oh, because that one, everyone seemed to love, and I didn't see it. It is the one that I want to go back and see. I only saw the 3rd season, and I really liked it.
I just don't think it was for me. I was just not. I just like wasn't feeling, and that's fine. Like that. Like I'm not gonna not like. Oh, you like that show? Like no, I get it. Like some people, I couldn't find what it was that people were super into there.
If you're gonna watch a season, watch the 3rd one.
Which one is that?
It's about all the witches.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it was Coven was the subtitle for that one.
This slasher season. Sounds appealing, because I like those movies. Those are always like there's a special place in my heart for like Friday the 13th and well, Scream, even though it's a spoof on itself, which is pretty great. But that could be interesting. Check that out. All right, so that's what you want to be watching. This is Shameless is what you are watching, and then
the last
what have you been watching?
What we have watched, which we watched a couple hours ago, and we finally got back to Gianna watching Star Wars.
We did.
Yes! All right, so I saw the calendar.
Yeah, I was gonna say, first
I don't remember what tonight was.
What's that?
As I saw the calendar, but I don't remember what tonight was supposed to be.
Tonight was episode 3. It's been probably 2 months since we saw episode 2.
I would say longer, honestly.
Did you feel after episode 2, did you feel like you needed a break? Is that what it was? Or you just haven't gotten a chance? It's okay to say you felt like you needed a break.
I definitely needed a break. I don't know what it was. It was just like, anytime you brought it up, I was like, no. Like, I really haven't... I have no...
We know what it was. It was episode 2. Like, it will do that to you.
Oh, was that the one with the sand?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, no. Like, I think that just really was, like, so...
That's tremendous.
Much.
No, it seems like you were much more engaged.
When somebody who's...
I did kind of like...
It gets everywhere.
Well, give us your thoughts on episode 3.
I did like it. Well, this is one that I actually do remember seeing in theaters, so I thought that was kind of exciting because there were little flashes of like visual things where I was like, oh, I remember seeing that. I had no idea what was going on, but like I remember seeing that. So yeah, I liked it a lot. I don't know.
I was gonna say because she was getting into it like when. Spoiler for a movie that came out 14 years ago, everyone. Like when Mace Windu is finally trying to take down the Emperor, like she's like rooting him on, and then when Anakin comes in, she's like, "Oh no, come on!"
I was very upset.
And then he cut his arm off, and she's like, "No, come on!"
You feel it, yeah. You get attached,
and it's like one of those things where like I know how everything ends. Like I know Anakin becomes like Darth Vader and everything, but I just couldn't help rooting him on. I don't know. I was like, oh, come on, like it's fine, like just like Padme.
Yeah, as the movie's going on, you're like, you can turn around.
And I'm like, I know that this is not what I'm. Yeah.
It was great when what's his name finally like goes all in on like the Gambit and Palpatine is like saying like please use my knowledge you can't learn that from a Jedi, and she's like, oh come on. She's like, you're gonna fall for this, come on.
When he does a little wink where he's like, and you can save the ones that are that you love that are going to die. I was like, seriously? Like you don't see any sort of trap here?
I was like, how are you not rubbing your hands together laughing maniacally right now?
Like he literally, you can see in his face where he's like...
Tremendous role. I just like this vision of you watching the movie going, he could still turn around. He could still come back from this. He could still come back from this. Oh, he killed all those kids.
It came to the part because the problem was it was a little loud in the house when we were getting to like that point, so I kind of had to like interpret for her what was like happening for like a couple of scenes, and then I was like, okay, so they're going to the Jedi Temple now, and he's gonna kill all the Jedi, and I was like, but the thing is, all of the adult Jedi are pretty much out at war, so like they're fighting like all the apprentices, and then he walks into the room with the younglings, and she's like, what's going on? I was like, these are all like the youngest apprentices, and then he lights the lightsaber, and she goes, no.
I saw them all like hiding behind the chairs. I was like, oh yay, like they got them hidden. This is great. And there was a second where I forgot that he was like trying to kill all the Jedi, and he walks in. And I'm like, oh, this is great. He's gonna protect them. And then I'm like, oh shit, the lightsaber. He's not gonna. Yeah, and they're like, that's why I got rated PG-13. I was like, oh, he killed them.
Yeah,
he killed them all.
I'm glad you picked up on that, because what I was going to say was, as you go into that room, you're like, Al was probably like, and the lightsaber turns on, you go, PG-13.
Basically what happened is, like, he lit the lightsaber, and she's like, oh god, he's going to kill them all. I was like, yeah, and that's why this is the first PG-13 Star Wars.
Yeah, and they're like, and once they hit that mark, they're like, set them on fire.
Well, after we were done watching, I was like, okay, now you have to watch this, and I put on the Robot Chicken High Ground.
High ground.
That's not the high ground. I mean, that's not the Jedi way.
that's a phenomenal clip.
Yeah,
I love that so much. So you started from 1, or did you start from 4?
We're doing them chronologically.
Cool.
So
all right,
next one
sweet.
will be Solo, which will be next week.
Yes, Solo is next week.
Solo and then Rogue One.
Rogue One will be next after that.
So these are both like
4, 5, 6.
Ones, right?
Yeah, these ones were both made in the last couple of years, but they fit chronologically between the end of 3, because there's about a 20-year-ish gap between Episode 3 and Episode 4. And Rogue One basically takes place like a couple of weeks before Episode 4, and Solo takes place like a couple of years before that. Or at least most of it, because there's a little bit of a time jump.
There was a noticeable absence in your calendar between Episode 4 and 5, though.
Yeah, well, because what happened was we were like, oh, you have to watch 8 movies starting this week, and there's 13 weeks to watch it in. And so we're like, okay, like she's starting a new job in a couple of weeks. So it's like, oh, let's do 2 in these 2 weeks, and then take a week off, like her first week of new week of work. And then we were like, we basically like banged out. There was like 4 movies in like a 5-week span. So then it was like just finding like spaces to like build in like, okay, this will be a week off. This will be 2 weeks off. Like, oh, like this is holiday week. Like this is like Halloween weekend. So give me that weekend off. And then it's like you want to finish 8 close enough to 9. But also not be like cramming in there. Like make sure you're definitely going to get to all of them in case something crops up.
But why did you cut the film that comes between 4 and 5?
I didn't. Oh, the holiday special.
I do not want to see that.
We're only watching canonical stuff, and I'm not making her watch the shows because that's
I've heard enough
like
about
30
it.
hours of her life. So
fair enough. Jon Favreau wants to remake it.
The holiday special.
And let's add that to the list of remakes that I want to see.
Well, again, speaking of bringing someone back, isn't Harvey Korman dead? We cannot make that movie without Harvey Korman.
No. Is he? That's sad. I mean,
I feel like sense. He is. He's an old. He would be rather old.
Whip. Stir.
I might have to just show her.
That's cool though. I'm excited that you guys that you're catching up on this. So you're going to be going. Are you going to be coming for opening night? Is the question, I guess.
No, because I think if we base on the calendar, she's not technically on the hook to have watched it until like that weekend after it's out.
I think I gave myself a week break in between the last movie and the movie that's like.
It's tough because that weekend is BLC Christmas party weekend.
When is it
also, if you're going on a Thursday, I have work the next day, so I'm not going to want to do that.
True. Yeah, I for the past 3 years, I've consistently put in a work time off request that just says Star Wars.
Yep.
Yes, and, the week of the 15th off.
Yeah,
I work in a nerd culture. My boss is therefore a nerd, and when they see that request come in, it gets immediately approved, which is tremendous.
Yeah, so Harvey Korman would be like 92 if he was still alive, and he died about 10 years ago.
Oh, that's sad. Well, whip, stir, old friend. So that's what you have watched was 3. Okay, cool. So we're gonna have to check back in as you progress. What else you got? What other news and nuggets do we have on the list here?
No, that's it. Let's get to fun and games.
Yes.
All right, fun and games. Now here's the thing. This is how we're gonna play this since we have a special guest. Gianna, these questions are gonna be directed at Al. However, at any point, you have the option to veto his answer and choose a different one.
Okay.
All right. This quiz is which character from The Shining are you? I am sure that I'm going to be running out of quizzes that fall in line with the movies that we're doing very soon. I keep trying and I keep finding them, so here we go. Let's get started. How do you convince people to take your word? Flattery, talk to them about it, explaining it logically, threats, or strongly assure them?
Strongly what?
Assure them.
I'm going to go with logic.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
For you.
So she's doing it from like, if she's going to veto me. No,
she gets to veto you just if she chooses.
Yeah, I'm going off your personality. And yes.
What? All right, so this is what... Remember when I said that when we do quizzes that sometimes they're not worded properly? I'm not sure, like, do you read your work maybe once over before you post it? What do you when you feel threatened by someone? So I'm assuming this says, what do you do when you feel threatened by someone? This is by Playbuzz Quiz, by the way. Okay. What do you when you feel threatened by someone? Threaten them back? Laugh it off? Ask them if they have something against you? Get a weapon and use it on them? Choose your acts with caution.
Wait, choose what?
Your acts with caution.
Oh. I guess laugh it off.
That is not correct.
Do you know how often I get threatened in real life?
When do you get threatened?
Exactly.
So I feel like if you did get threatened, you wouldn't laugh.
How dare you threaten me? What do you do when someone warns you of danger? Ask for help in preventing harm? My curiosity overcomes me? Not take it seriously? Investigate carefully? Become very concerned and do all I can to prevent harm?
I guess become concerned? I didn't actually hear the whole question, but that one feels right.
I didn't hear the whole question either.
What do you do when someone warns you of danger?
Oh, yeah, proceed with caution.
That's good.
Okay. How do you get what you want? Insist on it verbally. Ask and negotiate. Manipulation by being mean. Take it by force. Manipulation by being nice.
Oh.
Manipulation by being nice.
Savage.
Kill him with kindness.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Introvert.
No. Veto.
What do you... All right. What do you do when you feel tempted to do something wrong? Refuse to do it? Hesitate, but then give in? Think about the pros and cons and decide based on that, or do it spontaneously?
Pros and cons.
You seem like a pros and cons guy. Gianna, do you agree? Pros and cons?
I'll let him stick with it. Did you change the last one?
I did.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
definitely not an extrovert. Do you even know me?
I do, actually.
I'm like an extroverted introvert.
Yes.
You're Dick.
What?
Dick Halloran.
Oh, Dick Halloran. Oh, I was hoping I was going to be Delbert Grady.
You're a very... I was hoping that you were going to be Tony. You're a very kind person with amazing ability.
That's what I have to speak in a froggy voice from now on.
Well, this is actually... okay, you're a very kind person with amazing abilities. You love young children, and you can relate to everyone very well. You're also a very helpful person.
All right,
there you go.
Sounds like I got the right person.
There you go.
What?
So there you go.
That's the chef.
Yeah.
The guy with the guy who told him about The Shining. Scatman Crothers.
I'm sorry, we never called him by his name. We called him Scatman the whole time.
By the way, that is by far the best name in the history of the world. Scatman Crothers. That was my original intro, and then I had that Twitter argument that I won, and then that had to be the intro. So.
Oh wait, what was this Twitter argument that you won?
Oh, it doesn't really matter. It was sports related. But at the end of it, someone at the end of it, I persuaded them with logic, and he said touche.
Nice. With that, let us get into our flick of the week. The Shining, 1980. This is your IMDb synopsis. A family heads to an isolated hotel for the winter where a sinister presence influences the father into violence, while his psychic son sees horrific forebodings from both past and future.
I'm usually the one who stumbles all over reading something.
Yeah, I'm like, it's one of those things where, like, I feel like I've been pretty successful with it so far. But by all accounts, I shouldn't be, because I stumble over things like that all the time. But whatever. Did you spill that beer everywhere?
It exploded everywhere.
Nice. I
think it's because I finally made fun of you one time too many.
On this occasion, it wasn't me that it happened to. While I was reading this IMDb synopsis, there was an advertisement for American Horror Story 1984, so that's kind of cool.
It's listening to us.
100%. This movie is interesting.
Yes.
I don't have... I have a memory of this movie when I saw it the first time. I'm not certain that I saw it from the very beginning, because as I was watching the movie, I could almost cue in on which point it was that I started watching it when I was younger, which isn't that far into it, but I definitely didn't have the setup that was necessary for understanding the plot. But I also wasn't watching it at a time where I was very critical or like really thinking about it. It was just like one of those things they threw it on one day. And my memory of what the movie was like, very different from what the movie is.
Okay. It sounds kind of like you perceived it similarly to the way that G just did with Revenge of the Sith, where it's like, I saw this before, and like I kind of remember things, but I have no idea what that scene was about the first time I saw it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, kind of like that. Except when I watched them, I remember thinking very fondly of the movie. Not that it, like, you know, it's a scary movie, it's a dark movie. Not thinking like, oh, like it's a fun and heartfelt movie. I remember thinking that it was a good movie. I don't necessarily feel that way now.
Oh, strong disagree.
I think it's mediocre.
I don't know.
I don't think it's particularly bad, but I don't think it's particularly good either.
I thought it was good, although some of its failings come to artistic choices that they chose to cut out of the book. Also, I realized when we discussed this last week or the week before, I realized that I was slightly misguided, and I thought that the plot of the movie changed somewhat significantly. It's really only the very end that's changed somewhat significantly, although the majority of it is like thematically right, but they just changed some of the details.
I'm interested in hearing about the ending of the book when we get into spoiler territory, but before we do that, Gianna, what did you think of this?
I thought it was pretty good. I didn't really have anything against it, but like it also wasn't something where I was like, ooh, like that's a really great movie. But like, yeah, I thought it was good. I think that's kind of where I fell too. Like the way that you're describing it sounds a little bit better, because it was more like I had this notion in my head of how great it was, and then I think I was let down by my own expectations of what I thought it was when I saw it the first time. Yeah, it kind of underwhelmed me from like everything I've heard about it.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I thought it was very good. It's not like it was like this is going to be like a Pantheon movie for me immediately off the bat, whatever. But there was a lot of things about it that did impress me overall. And it's a pretty well-crafted movie start to finish. It's got very good performances on a very small cast, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it does a lot of things really well.
And it aged well. It's the type of movie
I would agree with that too, yeah.
Could have been open to not aging well, but I guess in large part because it's not driven by very much CGI, really. It doesn't have to worry about that too much. It makes use of more practical effects. And a lot of it is more about tension and suspense building than it is about it's not built on jump scares, so you don't have to worry about that sort of thing.
Yeah, the cinematography is pretty great.
Yes.
There are certain things...
I was going to say, there's some specific things... like involving like the camera work and like cinematography that I found interesting that we can get into in a bit. But
yeah. Well, just for this is pre-spoilers and not a spoiler at all here. There's you probably, if you've seen the movie, if you've seen clips of the movie or trailers or anything, you've seen Danny riding around on his tricycle, and just those scenes alone, following him with the camera and the way they do that. I think like I could watch it's almost hypnotizing. I could watch those scenes on a loop,
which is meant to be.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's like it's really well done. It's very smooth.
A smart choice too, having it from his perspective because he's like 6 years old, rather than like doing it from up top. Like having it trail him at his height helps with like building those like awkward like spaces because like. He's a tiny little kid in like a big wheel, and so like all of like it makes like that like crushing like claustrophobic effect really go in with like those long hallways, and all of them look exactly the same, which kind of gives that labyrinthine feel to it. And because it's shot from such a low perspective, following this little kid, you get that like pressing like tension and like weight that you feel of it like all kind of coming down on top of you.
Yeah, no, it's I agree with that. One of the mechanics of the movie that actually bothered me was it's just the way that I feel about it, but the musical cues. So like, I like the music in the movie a lot. But they do a lot of builds and abrupt, loud sound that are irrelevant to what's going on.
Yes and no.
A lot. They do it a lot, and what bothers me is when they do it and it doesn't actually have something corresponding to it. I get that the point is probably it's more so putting you on edge. It's more so like building tension, but I don't because I'm so used to movies doing things like that. I don't actually get on edge. I just know like that's coming, and then when it doesn't come, instead of having like relief or like holding on to that like feeling of tension throughout the next couple of scenes, I'm just like. Oh, it feels like something went wrong in the filming. And I think that's just probably me watching so many movies.
I wonder if you recontextualize in the fact that this movie came out in 1980, so I don't know if it's the first thing to do those things.
That's fair. It might be.
I feel like it's among the pioneers of that style of building to an anticlimactic payoff to crescendoing, horrifying, dark, ominous tones and all that.
Yeah. No, that's totally fair. I can agree that I don't... It just didn't have the intended effect, but I think the reason why I'm okay with it is I think I understand what they were doing, and I feel like if it was the first time I was actually watching it, I probably would have felt that way.
Well, I also think if you watched it in 1980, you would have been more impressed by it.
Or even if I had never seen it and watched it right now, I had seen enough to know where the movie goes and to know, like, I recall the scenes very well. Like, I knew where each thing was going. And then as it was happening, I was thinking about like, why did I like this so much? And it's just, again, I just think it's okay.
It's also possibly the type of movie that maybe just didn't have a lot of rewatchability for you.
Yeah, that's probably all it is. It might not really have a lot of rewatchable for most. Though that being said, it's one of my favorite parts of Ready Player One, which is interesting because it's by no means it's not one of my favorite movies, but I thought it played really well in that space.
I actually want to get back to that a little bit later. Sticking on the idea of like kind of the way that they chose to do the musical cues and building tension through it. A movie that I kept thinking of while watching this was Annihilation, because it definitely borrowed from some of those ideas, like you said, like using like tones, using crescendos to put you off your balance. You know what I mean? Like whereas, it doesn't pay off with a jump scare or something right now. Although sometimes it does, both in that movie and this one. But like just that idea of this shocking you, wah, like sound is gonna like leave you a little frazzled for what's gonna come next. It's like it's trying to like set you up and like get you. It's like a boxer who's like hitting you with the jab, and then hits you with the cross, and then when you get hit with the jab and expect the cross, it's an uppercut this time. You know what I mean? It's that whole like setup thing.
Yeah, Gianna, do you like horror movies?
I'm not a person who like is terrified of them, but it's definitely not my like first genre to go for.
Yeah, you're not like immediately seeking them out, but you're open to some of them.
Yeah.
Well, we did go see It Chapter 2 last week together.
Yes. I mean, like, yeah, I'm not like against them, but it's also not something where I'm like, ooh, did you see the new horror movies out? Let's go see it.
Well, no, that's mostly I was asking because I wanted to make sure that you would have the context when I bring this up. So I'm curious how you guys feel about this. There's the jump scare tactic that is done today to death, right? It's done over and over again.
And this one really didn't do many.
No, I didn't I didn't find myself very scared by this movie because that's what usually gets me is the jump scares from like movies, and I didn't really feel that from this.
If jump scares don't get you, you probably should go see a doctor. Just
they do, but that's my point. Like this movie didn't have any, so I wasn't scared.
I agree. Like but that's the thing is jump scares are cheap. They're not earned. They're not. I don't think there's anything clever behind them. You pretty much know exactly when it's going to happen, but because it's so loud or quick or strange, you jump anyway. And it really is just a cheap way of getting a reaction out of you. What I find to be much more terrifying, and I think what happens is when they're doing that, what they're basically doing is you're at the same level as the character in the movie, right? You have the information they have, and that's about it. And then you get a jump scare. What I find to be much more terrifying is a scene like in The Shining, not spoilery, a scene like in The Shining where you are 20 seconds ahead of the character, where the character is reading through some papers that are immediately you're at the same level of this character when they're reading through the papers because you're having something revealed to you and it's like, oh my god. But then you get to go a couple of seconds ahead of them where you see another character come into screen that they're not aware of. That, to me, that's terrifying.
All work and no play makes Johnny a dull boy.
Yeah. That's a
Jack a dull boy, whatever it was.
Jack, yeah, that's a fantastic scene. That type of thing, I think that's creepier than most things that happen in a horror movie today.
Yeah. Also, the funny thing about a little bit of context for that scene, where again we don't want to get too much spoilers, but she's reading through all of the pages. So earlier in the evening, I was explaining to my mom the whole thing that you and I have referenced many times on the show, the idea of the Family Guy joke that goes too far and it's not funny anymore, and then it becomes funny. So she wasn't familiar with she's like, oh, like this, like that goes on forever. I was like, that's the point. Like the whole thing is like, so I showed her a couple of examples of it on Family Guy where it's like they keep going until the joke is no longer funny, and then they keep going again, and it's so ridiculous that it's now funny again. And during that scene, she goes, oh my god, stop looking at all the pages. They all say the same thing. It's the Family Guy thing.
Yeah. That's great. Oh, man.
Before we moved on too far from the music thing, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. We were watching the title sequence, which, first of all, Gianna and me came to the realization at the same point. Like, the title sequence looked like someone who's doing a bad job of PowerPoint. Because, they had,
100%.
The title card came up and it's
sideways,
came
vertical,
up. And scroll up, and the same thing. It was the very generic,
Like the font and like the color.
It's like white font on black title card. Like
right.
But then the music they're playing during it is actually pretty creepy and off-putting.
Oh yeah, the music's great.
I was like, what have I heard this in? And it took me way too long to remember. Oh, duh, it was in the Dr. Sleep trailer.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
Which then made me, I was like, oh, but I was getting anxiety because I was like, why do I know this fucking music? I can't think of what it's from. And I finally was like, oh, we just watched, it was a trailer leading into it. And I went to look up the trailer and I realized there's a new trailer which was out like over a week ago, but it wasn't the trailer before it. The trailer before it was the one that came out a few months ago. There's a new trailer that came out within the past week or so that I hadn't seen yet. That's got like a little bit of that, way more different things. It's maybe is guilty of quote unquote showing too much, but nothing in like a super spoilery way. I don't think it's just like it's showing you significantly new material that it wasn't showing a lot of different things. But they also still, at a certain point, cut in the title music from The Shining. And I was like, yeah, okay, I was right. That's what it was from. Yeah, that is legitimately
it's pretty iconic. Music. Oh yeah, it's solid. It's well orchestrated.
It is.
Did you know that there was a 97 television adaptation?
Only because I was looking up The Shining and I saw something 1997 The Shining and I was like, oh wow, I didn't know that existed and I didn't have the time to click on it and look at it, so...
It's about 4.5 hours, it looks like, so probably similar to the It television.
Oh, interesting.
Adaptation, like probably like a 2 VHS type deal. Never saw it. Did not look like it got very good ratings when I came across it just now, which I didn't know about beforehand either.
Well, that creepy face doesn't look great. Yeah, it says TV miniseries. It was 3 episodes.
Okay, so yeah.
So it probably
I just had no idea.
Better job of adapting the book, I'm guessing.
Which is interesting, though, because it's like Shining went from movie to TV adaptation, and then it went from TV adaptation to movie.
Wait, was it a TV adaptation beforehand?
The Tim Curry one?
Oh,
is
sorry,
a TV.
It. You said TV. You said The Shining. Sorry.
No, Shining went from movie to TV, and then it went from TV to movie. Kind of curious about that's interesting.
Okay.
But I'm curious how that Shining TV miniseries was.
It did win 2 primetime Emmys.
I saw that too. Did you see what they were for?
I'm going to find out now. Outstanding makeup for a miniseries or special.
Doesn't look like it.
And outstanding sound editing for. So it doesn't actually show us anything. It was nominated for outstanding miniseries though.
Okay, that's interesting. Any notes before we get into spoiler territory, so we don't have to? I mean, it's 1980. The movie came out, but still. Well,
I guess there's one other thing we can talk about because it's not actually about the movie. I find it interesting what you had mentioned earlier about Ready Player One. This is a movie / book that has been like parodied and homaged in like so many different versions of pop culture, and I find that interesting considering you said you're like, oh, it's fine. It sounds like Gianna's kind of about that. I'm a little bit more strongly in favor of it than you guys are. But it seems to have left an indelible mark on the culture. And that's why I said, I wonder if you'd seen this in 1980, if you maybe would have looked at it more favorably. Even though it didn't not age well, I think maybe you could lack an appreciation of what made it so important at the time that it doesn't have and hold now, 40 years later. But it's funny because when we were done watching the movie... What's that?
Sorry, it was the timing was off for a second there. What were you gonna say?
I said when we were done watching the movie, I showed Gianna and my mom because the 3 of us watched it together. The music video for "The Kill" by 30 Seconds to Mars. Have you seen the whole video? I think it's really cool that they did that, and they won best music video that year at the Grammys for that thing. It's really well done. Obviously, I like that song a lot, and both of them were like, "Oh, I know this song." I had no idea that this thing existed, and I think it's funny because it's like kind of off-brand because the room number they use is different. Like they kind of play around with some of the conventions, but then they still have like the thing with like the person in a bear costume like filleting someone, and someone climbing out of a bathtub to make out with someone, and someone going to a bar when they shouldn't be, I guess. But it's like, even though it's kind of like the off-brand version, it's very reverent to the material too. Like it's not at all making fun of it. It's clearly done like because it likes the thing. And it plays around with some of the conventions in it, I think was really cool.
Oh, it's not making fun of it? I thought it was laughing it all off in your face.
That was almost as good as my Amber is the color of my energy joke from a couple weeks ago.
Well, what's funny is this song has given me 2 of those, and I'm surprised that they were in such quick succession. I think it was like a few weeks ago was What If I Wanted to Break who came up. But
yeah, that's right.
No, it is interesting. I don't know. You did bring up a good point. The movie does hold up as far as aesthetically, and as far as the majority of the execution. Like it never really felt to me while I was watching like the movies from 1980. It just felt like it was a strange movie, like in its own vault of whatever time it is. Like it's like its own thing, and that I could see that coming out in that time alongside of the other things that came out in that time, and being like a step above everything
this is
else.
like a high quality, because it is like a quality production. Like,
yeah.
The other 2 things I had thought about was, well, for one, since we had already talked about Ready Player One, that is absolutely like a love letter to this, right? And like Steven Spielberg, I think, has made no like secret of the fact that he loved a lot of Stanley Kubrick's work, right?
Yeah.
And even though it does take some liberties with how it interprets it, there are some things that are really, honest to God, like the whole blood in the hallway from the elevator scene, you know what I mean? Like the stuff going into room 237, all of that is very like strict to the material, even if they played around with the convention at the end when they're going through the dance floor. But the other one that I found interesting, even though it's really only the very end that makes it like a reference to it, and it's very obviously parodizing it, is, do you remember the Key and Peele sketch Continental Breakfast?
I'm not sure.
Did you watch it? I sent it to you last night.
No, I did not watch it.
I showed it to my mom. She had already gone upstairs. And it's like it's kind of a send up of the premise, because the end shot is the same end shot where it's, you know, you've never left, you've been here the whole time, and they show the picture and it's someone being there. But I'll describe it to you. You and I and Gianna will have to watch it together when we're done recording. But okay. It's a businessman's, like, who it's played by Jordan Peele, is checking into like a generic like Hilton Garden Inn type hotel, and Keegan-Michael Key is the guy working at the desk, and he's like, "Oh, here's your room key, and we have continental breakfast every morning from 6 to 10." He goes, "A continental breakfast? Oh yeah, you come in." And he goes, "And it's free." Yes, of course. You know. And so it's the next morning he comes down and he's eating breakfast, and he's treating it like it's way too fancy and like cool. It's the first time he's ever gotten free breakfast for like on a business trip, even though it's like, you know, it's like a couple of pieces of fruit, a couple of muffins, it's a couple of different cereals, you know what I mean? Like it's not like it's a breakfast buffet. It is like a true blue continental breakfast. And he just goes completely over the top with the whole thing. And it's clearly, at first you wouldn't have realized it's making fun of The Shining, because it's making fun of a lot of different things. There's one line in the middle of it where he's eating it and he's just turned into like this like orgasmic experience, and he goes, "I'll have what I'm having," instead of I'll have what she's having.
I've seen that clip.
Yes. Which is obviously, you know, when Harry met Sally and all that, but at the end it turns into they're doing The Shining with, you know, it's great, like how many, and I'm sure there's a million other references to this movie in a million different things, but it makes you have an appreciation for how important this work is for so much of pop culture, because there's a million things that like the first time I saw that skit when I was watching the show, because I love that show, I watched it when it was live. I had no idea the final scene was a reference to The Shining, because that scene I don't think was in the book. I think that's a movie only thing.
Gotcha. Interesting. All right. Well, with that, let's get into the post-spoiler territory. So all bets are off. If you haven't seen The Shining by now and you're listening here, we're going to be talking straight up about everything that happens in the movie.
39 years old, guys.
With that, let's get into spoiler territory. The first thing that I want to bring up is Tony. And the reason I want to bring him up is, like I had mentioned earlier, I had a very different version in my head of what goes on in this movie. And I remember Tony being like I remember it being like a bad and evil thing. I didn't realize that it was more of like a protective, like...
Yeah, I think in the book, they kind of maybe string you along a little longer into, is it good, is it bad, is it just, like, neutral benevolent? You know what I mean? But no, it is unquestionably... And I think when we were watching, my mom asked, too, I was like, no, it's, like, not a malevolent thing. It's trying to protect him. It's... Because it's kind of like a sixth sense, like extrasensory perception type thing, like where he's got like some telekinetic power, some clairvoyance, like he can see like things of the future, but it's filtered through his like viewpoint of being a very young child, where it's like he doesn't understand everything he's seeing. And Tony isn't an actively malevolent force. It's a benevolent force that I don't know if it's supposed to be symbiotic, where it's like it kind of has its own will, or if it's just an extra manifestation of his own personality. But it's definitely not meant to be an evil force.
I mean...
The whole time I was waiting for it to become like that. But...
just turn into like a little monster.
Well, I think the whole point, like, because we're doing, post-spoilers here, right? Like, where... Because it takes over Danny, right, at the end, like, for a while. He says Danny can't come here and now. I think it knows the shock and trauma that's gone on and is continuing to come, and it's shielding his young, fragile psyche from things that would irreparably harm him. You know what I mean?
Well, that's kind of nice.
Right. Yeah. It's Tony's nice. He's a nice guy. I will say that anytime that he's been like, they're like, "Who's Tony?" And Tony's the little boy that lives in my mouth. I'm like, okay, weirdo. Like that is. I just think, can you imagine? Like, I don't know how I would react if I had a child that said that thing. I'd be
I feel like that's also a time difference too. Like 1980, I feel like you might not have thought anything into it, but I feel like now you'd be like, "What?"
Yeah,
he lives in my mouth, and then when people are looking for him, he goes down and hides in my stomach, and it's like, "What?" Sorry, what now?
So we're gonna go to the doctor, and you're gonna stay there for a little while. Yeah, it's terrifying. That kid creeps the hell out of me in this movie, and it's like he's fine. Like there's really nothing wrong with him. He's not the creepy part of the movie, but he is creepy.
Yeah, well,
when he makes his faces.
I think that's an interesting story because I think the kid does a good job because like
he did do a really good job
dealing with like a lot of adult material. I know that the story goes that Kubrick was very protective of him. Not like I guess he didn't know that it was. He didn't even know it was a horror movie until like a couple of years later.
Oh wow!
Like they really shielded him from like I think any scene that he wasn't in was like not allowed to come to set. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. Like, he wasn't allowed to see the movie when it came out. And he was only ever in two things. He was in, I think he played like a small role. I was looking at it earlier because I remember hearing something like that he got out of acting after that or whatever. He was in like some other like kind of, it wasn't a documentary, but it was like a movie of like an autobiography of like G. Gordon Liddy, and he plays like the young version of him. That's the only other acting credit that he has.
Interesting.
But I thought he did a good job, and I wonder if one of those things where it's like maybe this isn't for me. Although, like, I think he was, true to the age that they were portraying. Like, I think he really was, like, 6-7 years old when they were shooting this.
Yeah, he's he definitely did a good job. Made some super creepy faces and sounds, though. That's for sure. Speaking of creepy
there,
sounds,
drooling.
yeah, that was uncomfortable.
Yeah,
he's like spazzing, like he's like legit like. He's like shaking in that scene. It's creepy.
That was when he was reaching out to Halloran, right?
Yeah. Which what a tremendous character. I loved that character. I thought he was really good. But at the end of the day, he's just like within this movie. I'm assuming that the character is a little bit more in the book. He's a little bit more in the book, and also he survives. Oh, interesting. I was gonna say because in this he's pretty much just a MacGuffin. Like and he just so that you know. Let's be clear about what Danny is. Also, here's Snowcat. Well, that's it. He's Basil Exposition, right? Yeah. We can get into more like as we get towards the ending of it. Like, but the ending diverges significantly, and one of the ways is that while he is very badly injured, he does survive. He calls it when he's explaining the Shining. Like we called it Shining. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Have you ever seen John Panette's stand-up? That name sounds familiar, but I don't know. Heavy-set comedian. He passed away a few years ago. Really funny.
Yeah, you one of the things you wrote for the Spin Tune, you've put a scene that he did from one of his stand-ups in it, and you sent it to me, or I read it, saw it in the article.
I loved it. He's just so funny, but he has this whole skit about he's going up to Maine for a skiing trip, and he's like, we're going all the way up into Maine near Russia. Because he's just trying to get across the point how far away it is. And he's like, we stop along the way, we go to get gas, and then people are saying like all sorts of Maine things, like going all the way up there. And I was like, why? And when he goes in the movie, when he says, we called it Shining, I was like, why? Like, is there a more of a meaning to the word in the book? It doesn't, it means nothing in the movie.
Well, I think part of it is, they modernized it, I think, some when they made the movie, because I think the book was written for it to take place more in, like, the 50s. So I think that they made him a little bit more stereotypically black for the time.
Well, that actually brings up another interesting point, which is the accents and the way that people speak. Because I was like, people didn't talk like that in the 80s. I mean, I vaguely remember the very, very late 80s, and it wasn't anything like that.
Yeah, there was some of this that was a little bit anachronistic because of them choosing to kind of modernize it, but not all the way, where it, not quite, but kind of comes out like the way early Archer does, where it's like, we have like GPS and smartphones, but also like our computers are like black and green like screen, and also everything is wood paneled like the 70s, and it's got rugs and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a little, but is that what was going on with the accents and the way that?
I think
like, what is Shelley Duvall's accent in this movie? What is that?
Repressed housewife.
Southern
Are we
Belle.
talking about her voice?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my god.
I think she just struggles with her teeth, and I was gonna leave her appearance out of it, but she has rather large teeth.
No, she doesn't. And I thought her acting was terrible.
Well, no, you just thought her running was terrible.
No, there was like
oh
her
my God,
in
that
the
running.
bathroom when he's it's here's Johnny thing, and she's I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Well, there's a whole thing about that, and I
couldn't get over it. I just thought, like, the whole time I was like, I don't think she's acting very well, and I was like, maybe it'll get better, like, you know, she's playing a part, and then I was like, no, it really doesn't. She's not good.
I think there was something to it, and I forgot to look into it today. It was like the one thing I forgot.
That she was completely tormented during the filming?
Yes, that.
Yeah. Yeah, she was actually, like, freaked out.
Yeah, like, because he goes full method with some of the crazy that he does in some of his roles. And
he was really believable, though.
I think she in the aftermath said, like, there was times where I was uncomfortable, and I tried to tell them that, and they weren't receptive to my constructive criticism, and I think, she had a hell of a time doing it. I actually thought she might have quit acting too, but it seems like she did some other, like, small roles through the years.
I do have to say, I'm with Gianna here, though, on that run. When she's running around kind of flailing and holding the knife, and, like, and I don't, like, what is she doing with her head? It's very Ricky Bobby. Right.
Well, you were doing.
It's like, what do I do with my hands?
Making fun of her for that during the way she was running. With
oh
the
my
knife.
God, with the knife, and I'm like, she's like with the one hand, I couldn't get over it.
She's like, what is she doing?
it's the movie. It kicks off that whole thing with her. Also, when she's swinging the bat, it's like it's almost as if she's exhausted and she's swinging the bat, like, very gently. The fact that he gets hit and falls down the stairs with the vigor with which she is swinging the bat is silly. But that being said,
it's funny because if you ever swung a weapon before, like, you would never choke up 50% of the way. Like, even if you're swinging a bat that's too heavy for you, you would choke up, a couple of inches, not literally 50% of the way up the bat.
It looked like she was trying to, like, ward off, like, an animal, where you're not necessarily trying to hit them, but you're just trying to distract them a little bit, and, like, scare them by moving it around. Like, he's coming after you, just hit him.
Like, the way she was holding it, it would have been more effective to jab with the bat than to swing it.
She could have poked him. I didn't care.
That's what I'm saying.
Just
she could have jabbed him with the bat more effectively than swinging it at that point. Because her hands 100%. Are so far up the barrel of the bat that she was almost hitting herself with the knob at the end of the bat.
If she knocked herself out, I wouldn't have been surprised.
I will say though, like, on top of her being actually terrorized in real life during the making of the movie, I think it was unfair that, to a certain extent, and it's more script than anything, that she really has to handle most of the like emotional burden of the film.
Yes.
Which also probably more comes down to making movies in the 80s about books written in like this early 70s or whatever. Because, and it's twofold. One, because, again, to kind of lightly get into the whole idea of gender roles back then, but two, and more importantly to this specific movie, they cut out a ton of the nuance of the character of Jack in this. And because of that, the two of them, or all three of them, are supposed to carry at different times in different ways the emotional, like, burdens of this story. And they paint it as the two of them just perpetually being afraid. Like, they act like they're already being terrorized by him before he starts his descent into madness. Mm-hmm. And that's really not the case in the book. It actually starts as healthy of a relationship as it could be, considering the jumping off point of the idea of they left Vermont and he left his job. He was teaching at a prep school. It was a really good job. And his alcoholism caused him to have issues, not just at home, with the idea of him dislocating the shoulder. And that was really the only time that they let him have, like, where he's talking to Lloyd, the bartender, and he says, like, yeah, I went too far. I fucked up. I hurt him. Didn't mean to. Feel like shit. And it's like, and now I can't, like, she'll never let me live it down type of thing. But the thing is, it takes a while to get to the point where she starts to keep beating him over the head with it. In the book, like, it's as healthy of a relationship as it could be for someone who is relatively newly on the wagon. Like, there is genuine affection between him and his wife and him and his son. Whereas in the movie, it's characterized as, like, she loves Jack, she loves Danny, and Danny loves her, and they kind of exist.
And Jack is shitty.
Yeah. Like, he's definitely not the best dude in the book, but he's, like, a tragically flawed dude. Like, there is nuance. It's a guy who's trying his best who fails. You know what I mean?
But I'm glad you brought that up, because I had that note down where I was like, he's not, the character has no redeeming qualities in the movie.
By eliminating his relationship with Danny, it just casts him purely as a villain in this, which ultimately he becomes, but the story is about how he gets there, and the movie, that's not the case.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too, that, like, there was a, like, without you saying that, I was literally thinking, I was like, it was kind of hard to tell when he started to become, like, when he started to go crazy from the place, and, like, when it was just himself being, like, a psycho.
Yeah, because they start with, he feels like he's very on edge from the very beginning, and, like, well, he is, because it's just a stressful thing. Like, once they settle in, it's like you get, like, 90 seconds of that on screen, right? Where he, like, it's 1 month later, and he wakes up, and she made breakfast, and, like, they're all happy for, like, 1.5 scenes. Like, there's a lot more of that in the book, which then makes it all starting to go wrong that much more impactful. Because it's like, oh, maybe things are going to work out for them. You know what I mean? Maybe they really did need a change of scenery. Maybe him being on the wagon will really work for them. Maybe they're having time just to work on their own relationships with each other will really benefit them. And you don't get to see that on screen. And I get why, because it can't be a 4.5 hour movie. And the movie does the best that it can cutting those things out, but it makes things very black and white. Whereas by the end of the story in the book, you do feel bad for Jack. Because in addition to making him a more complex, tragic figure, his descent into madness also, the supernatural aspect of it becomes more important. Whereas it feels like that's just an excuse for him to give in. As opposed to outside forces actively working to corrupt him.
Gotcha. Hey, I think that would have gone a long way for me, I think.
Yeah.
Actually,
I will say, though,
character.
I will say from the perspective of the movie, his performance was really good. Like, all the faces he makes, the tirades he launches into. He's a creepy
dude.
The manic episodes that he has, like, where he's just, like, going ranting and raving, and then all of a sudden he stops and, like, at one point he's just staring into space and drooling with his mouth, like, agape. And it's like, if I watched this in time and then 10 years later saw 89 Batman, I would have been like, oh yeah, I totally get why they cast
Right.
Jack Nicholson in this. Did you see him in The Shining? It feels like an audition.
It's one of the scenes that always gets. I just think it's so great when he says, "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to bash your fucking brains in." That's a great scene. Very much cheapened by the scene from Suicide Squad, which until I watched this again, I feel like was a nod to that and ruins it. I'm not gonna kill you. I'm just gonna hurt you really, really badly. It was just a really crappy dialogue.
I tried my best to forget that movie, so
but
I actually didn't remember that line.
I feel like that's a nod to this, and it just made me go, oh. But no, it's a great scene, and it's a great line. How did he get out of the freezer or the pantry?
See, that's the other thing, because I think my mom and my sister were a little confused at the time, and I explained it to them. Then I was like, they made it very subtle early, and then kind of really leaned into it later. But the hotel, in not just the literary sense, but in a very real, tangible sense, is its own character.
Yeah, okay. They just don't do a lot with it. I guess they do the blood, they do the little spirits and stuff like that, but I guess the hotel opened the door. Yeah, that's what I was taking away from it.
So there are more scenes, more conversations between him and kind of the ghost of Del Rey, Grady. The hotel is a character. There is some sort of supernatural consciousness in the hotel that within the bounds of the hotel can affect the physical world, which is why like Danny has bruises on his neck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good point. I didn't think about that. Yeah, that works. Okay,
now they limit its scope a lot more in the movie than they did in the book. They cut one of the really big sequences out of the book that when I was reading it, it's one of those like literally page turner where it's like a 10-page like thing, and it's like you're reading and you're like, oh, like you're like your heart's pounding through your chest, like in a way that maybe it never even quite gets to in this movie, where can't remember if it was in the maze or it was near the maze, because there's these topiaries, they're like those things where like they clip hedges to be in the shape of things. Mm-hmm. They try to kill Danny. And it's really one of the most gripping things I've ever read, that whole sequence. And they cut that out of this completely. Like, they are real, tangible things. But it's one of those things where it was kind of like what we were talking about with It last week, where it's like, what are the rules? Can it come out and get him? Can they move? Or is it only like in your arm's reach? Because it's one of those things where it's rules? Like, yeah, he's like being chased, but then it's like he turns around and looks, and like they're back in exactly the same position they were in. But there's never really left in doubt that had he not gotten away, he probably would have succumbed. And that was an important part of something they kind of subsume underneath all of this, where Danny and his shine that is what the hotel is actually after. Mm-hmm. And they find out that his power is actually too powerful. And so rather than, it's kind of like a take your ball and go home situation, where it's like, well, if we can't have your power, then we're gonna kill you. And they start to corrupt Jack because he's a much easier target. And
gotcha. And use him as a puppet.
Jack killed Danny.
It's interesting. The hedge maze, or like coming to life and trying to. I wonder if the choice not to do that had to just do with effects. Like it would have been difficult to do that with practical effects.
Definitely.
So that, which is fair. Like, I mean, obviously, like, because everything else does look pretty good.
Yeah, and even then, like, one of the big kind of like the nerve center for the hotel is the boiler room, and we only really get one scene, and I think it's just meant to be a nod to the importance of it when she's in there and Jack has the nightmare and he's screaming.
Yeah,
that is a recurring place that Jack has to keep going to, and that's kind of where the power of the hotel is concentrated. Because the more time he spends there, and he does have to, they're basically like, hey, every couple of days you have to check and make sure the pressure buildup doesn't go up too high. You have to dump it, otherwise it's gonna explode.
Yeah, it's kind of like a one-off line about how he has to control the hotel, but they don't really go too far into it.
Yeah, so the more time he spends down there, the more corrupted he becomes.
Interesting.
And ultimately, that's the change. He doesn't chase Danny out in the wilderness and freeze. There's kind of a final sequence where he's brutalized Halloran but Halloran has survived. Instead of running around with an axe, he's running around with like a croquet mallet. And he also has beaten the wife badly as well. And he's going after Danny, and Danny finds a way to kind of Luke Skywalker him and bring him back to the light temporarily. And in that moment, it wouldn't have worked in the movie because they didn't give you any relationship or any positive relationship between the two of them, but because they had one, like, Jack realizes, like, oh, fuck, I fucked up. And he's like, Danny, run. I'm so sorry. Like, remember, like, that I love you.
Oh,
and then, like,
interesting.
The hotel takes back over, and it actually causes him to, like, beat the shit out of himself to, like, kill the good.
Huh.
And then Danny's like, hey, Mr. Hotel, you're about to explode. And the things, like, what used to be Jack is like, oh, fuck. And it goes to run down to the boiler room, and Danny and the mom and Halloran escape out of the hotel, and before the Jack creature can, like, fix it, the whole hotel explodes.
Okay, so is there an alternate version of this movie where that happens?
I don't know.
Because I feel like I knew that, and then when the movie ended the way that it ended, I was like, huh? Unless I just had heard about...
To my knowledge, what we watched was the theatrical version, because, I mean, there's a reason that there's a very famous gif of him being frozen that is a meme online, so...
I wonder if it blows up in that adaptation, and maybe I saw it once.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if there's an alternate version of it.
Interesting. Okay, so that's the key difference then in the ending.
Yes.
Is the hotel blowing up. So with the
I feel like I would have liked the other version better.
I mean,
like the other ending.
I mean, the chase through the labyrinth was kind of cool on its own right, but I think overall it might have been a better finish to it. But again, I wonder if they settled on that ending because of the cuts they made to the script that didn't allow the two of them to have a relationship, because that would have fallen a bit flat if all of a sudden he's like, Danny, I love you, and it's like, but when did we establish that exactly?
Right. Well, now I am curious, because you had mentioned you weren't sure if Dr. Sleep is going to be like a sequel to the movie versus the book, and
well, here's the thing. I saw that new trailer.
The hotel's there, right?
In that newer trailer, he goes back to the hotel. Like, that's where they're going to have.
So I did see that trailer when I saw it.
Okay, I didn't see that until today. Yeah, so like they kind of make their final stand there, because the relationship between Danny and his power and the hotel itself, the two sides recognize that in each other. The hotel itself and Danny, or Tony, at least, recognize that in themselves, and that's why. And Halloran makes an even bigger deal in the book of, hey, don't go over here, don't go over there, don't engage with this thing. And he does a better job of following all of that, I think, overall. Although I think he still does go into room 237 or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where it was important, the relationship. Like, the hotel realizes early on, oh, I can make uses. I think, if I remember correctly, the gist of it was that the hotel wanted to possess him to, like, have a body to be able to walk out of there, to not be tied to that location. And when it realized it couldn't, like I said, it kind of throws a temper tantrum. And then vice versa, like, Danny he's smart in the movie, but he's even smarter in the book, where it's like, he knows this place is bad, and like, that he needs to manage his situation as best as possible.
That's interesting. I kind of want to read it. Makes me curious.
It's a really good book. It's just long.
Yeah. So there were two competing theories that I were reading about the ending of the movie version. Okay. One being a reincarnation theory of the character Jack is like a reincarnation of the same character that has done other horrible things in this hotel over time.
Yep.
And then the other theory being the hotel claims you after it kills you, and you become part of it. So, like, those were the two reasons behind why he would appear in the photograph.
It was very Hotel California, right?
But yeah. Which, do you subscribe to either of those theories?
I don't know. I was always a little confused by that whole thing. Like, the whole, well, you've been here the whole time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he's there in the picture, and that starts to play around with, like, some, like, time travel stuff, or even maybe some, like, Cloud Atlas reincarnation type thing, like you're saying. Mm-hmm. I guess it's probably more that, where it's like, you embody a person who's very much similar to it, and like you kind of keep coming back to the same thing in like different lifetimes. The only problem with that being is that like Grady had died, like that whole massacre thing happened like 10 years before the events of this.
I feel like that's what kind of throws that out the window.
Like if it was like, oh yeah, this thing happened like 50 years ago, lifetime ago, no one here even remembers it. You know what I mean? Like then you could like really lean into that then.
What do you think, Jay?
I really didn't think that much into it. I was just kind of like, oh, like it's magic, you know?
I honestly think that's probably that might be a better take based on the way the rest of the movie goes. Like, oh, it's just this creepy thing that maybe we're not supposed to fully understand.
That's the way I took like most of the movie. Was just like when like the door was open, I was like, oh, it's just haunted. It does what it does. Like it's not. That's. I was like, well, how did it open? I was like, it just didn't.
And when you can use haunted as the explanation, you don't have to ask further questions. No further questions, Your Honor. Magic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I guess since
how did he get in the room? Oh, the room's haunted and the door open. Got it.
Fair enough. which really enough. Like that is enough. Like the whole point is it is attracted to Danny and his power. So it first sets up the interest. Like, oh, that was 237. I can't get in. And then it's, hey, the door's open, guy.
One of the most screwed up things that happens in this movie is when Shelley Duvall asks him, "You went in there? You didn't see it? There was nothing there?" And he says nothing. I was like, you were a liar. Like, it bothered me so much.
Yeah, that part bothered me a lot too. Like a lot of the whole movie, he's like messed up and everything. But I was like, seriously? Like, you're really gonna lie about that one thing, and then your kid has bruises around his neck, and like you're not gonna say you saw anything?
Listen, he's angry. He's confused. He's drunk on magic bourbon.
Yeah.
He was just raped by a dead woman. He's not in a great place.
That bothered me probably the most by, like, how did it get placed there, was they were like, yeah, we took all the alcohol out. And then he was, like, sitting there getting, like, trashed. And I'm like, see, that part, that didn't sit well with me. I was like, well, how did they get it? You can't haunt, like...
It's magic bourbon.
Whoa, hang on. Now you're saying that there's rules to haunting? See, that's where it falls.
See, that part, I know, but, like, I had an explanation... I had an explanation for everything, but that was the one part where I was like, seriously? Like, I don't know.
When that whole scene of him getting drunk, there's a lot of things wrong with that scene, aside from the fake booze getting him drunk. When he refers to his wife as the sperm bank, I was like, let's kill this guy.
Yes,
let's just end him with an axe.
Yeah, when that happened, I was like, oh, man. I don't remember if that was a line in the book or not. I just can't remember, but, like, I remember feeling that one physically.
Yeah.
Like,
oh. Yeah. Kim and I both recoiled.
Laugh after too. I was like, oh.
That was one of the rougher, like, just, like, absolutely, like, disregarding, like, disdainful insults I've ever heard. Just like,
yeah.
I disliked him, I think, like, up until that point. I was like, I don't really...
That was the
point
of no return.
I was like, all right. I was like, I'm kind of done with this now.
Yeah.
You know what? Kill him! Kill him now!
Yeah. Kim was like, did he just... I was like, yeah, he did. He's a creepy dude in that movie.
Yeah.
He did a good job with it, though.
Oh, yeah. He's great at being creepy.
He made you hate him. He made you believe that he was crazy.
He also, like, his eyebrows are nuts. I don't know what he does with those things, but they're crazy. His eyebrows are another character.
But, like, I honestly thought he was crazy the whole time, too. Like, when he was sitting for the interview, and they were, like, explaining the whole thing, and they were like, oh, so did you hear about, like, the murder of, like, the family, and then he killed himself, and he just sits there, and he's just like, yeah, like, that shouldn't be a problem, and he's like, smiling, and I was like, has he, like, you've been there 5 minutes, is it already bothering you? Like, I don't know, it really, that part.
I've interviewed a number of people. I know the way that the rest of that day goes. He walks out of the room and he turns to his colleague and he goes, no.
Yeah, and then he continued to do it. Like, if he made that, like, face, whatever, just for the point of, like, you know, just leave on a good note, sure, but, like, the fact that he went through with it.
Well, that's why most, like, interviews, like, you go with multiple people, even if only one of them has hiring power, because it's just trying to get you to crack to say, does one of these people pick up psycho vibes? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. You know what's speaking of psycho vibes, he really was an asshole the entire movie, and, like, when he calls his wife and she's like, "Did you get the job?" He goes, "Yeah, listen, I'm gonna be home late." I'm like, that was so dismissive, and it made me so mad.
Well, that was another thing they cut out where I'm pretty sure, I can't remember if it was implicit or explicit, but I'm fairly certain it was in the book that he, at around the time that he decided to get sober and got fired, I'm pretty sure he cheated on her. And I can't remember if she knew or didn't know, or if it's one of those things where like she had her suspicions but just kind of let it go because he did commit to the sobriety thing.
Interesting.
And slight potential spoilers for Dr. Sleep. I think my guess is, and I haven't read it, I've read like one chapter of it. I think that young girl character is Danny's niece.
Niece.
Well, she's quite young, and he's in his 40s, so...
Oh, duh. Gotcha.
I think
but
that
making one of the other characters
sister.
I think that he has an affair with someone else who teaches at the school, because there's a whole thing where, like, there's some sort of, like, gala, I think, and I think he gets drunk and cheats on her, and that's also around the time when he breaks his shoulder, or dislocates his shoulder, and so he gets sober, whatever, and then they leave... and they're in Colorado for a few months, and then they take the job or whatever. And I think in that time that instance of cheating resulted in a kid out of wedlock, and I think that person has a child that is going to be that young girl.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
That's my guess based on what I kind of half remember, because it's been a good 5 years since I read the book, and like I said, it's quite long, so...
The thing is, like I said, like I found the movie to be mediocre. The story itself it's like semi-interesting. I am weirdly drawn to figuring out like what's the next part of the story. Whereas beforehand, I thought Dr. Sleep looked shitty. Now that I have the context of The Shining, I am more curious than I was.
Which is
before.
what I said to you last week. Is that I wonder if once you've seen this, if you're maybe more interested in.
No, you're 100% right, and I am now. I'm curious. Like I don't think it's going to be like a tremendous film or anything like that. But I think I do want to see it. I'm curious where it goes.
Yeah.
After you explaining like all like the pieces that were like missing that were kind of like confusing and stuff, it like makes me want them to remake the movie now and like have all those other pieces and have it more
like
go by the book
or something.
Well, I think it's the other thing is it's kind of like where I said like I found that reading Cloud Atlas gave me a lot of context for the movie, even though they did change some things, because there's a lot of things that they kind of hint at or just gloss over where it's like, oh, I now get why that matters a lot more than just kind of a detail on the page. Like, I feel like the same thing, like going in, even though my memory of this book wasn't incredible, I feel like there's a lot of things implicitly that I kind of got that you guys miss because you don't have that context. You know what I mean? Whereas like, maybe this is good for broadening that, where it changes your perspective on some of the things that went down.
I feel like maybe I'd appreciate the movie better if I did read the book, because it just was kind of like, it was just kind of like hollow.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just didn't like, I was just kind of like,
I'm with you.
I don't know.
Yeah, either extend it
like,
or...
The story didn't go very deep, I didn't feel.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, like, I guess where you could have done that is maybe the setup for it is a little too long, right? Well, it takes them getting to being at the hotel, but at the same time, if they could have dealt with more setup, if instead of spending so much time with him like getting the job and all that, if they'd spent that time developing the relationship of the actual family unit, getting a little moment of them,
getting like a feel of like,
because if you get
dynamic
if you get the family dynamic, then all of this has greater context and meaning, and then that whole descent actually means something, because that's really, it all hinges on the family drama, really. Like, the supernatural makes it all interesting. It spices it up, but it hangs on the family drama. And when, from the get-go, one of those guys is, no, you're just the asshole, it's hard to really hang on every word of every interaction, right?
I mean, he did a good job playing the asshole and everything.
But
just like, I felt like there was like more to it that there should have been. It was just kind of like...
And there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, having that context from you actually does make a difference for it. It's interesting.
Like, I wonder if, like... if you went back and watched this again in like a few months, knowing this stuff, if you might change your perception slightly of the movie.
If I got myself in the right mindset, I would. I'd probably be able to do that, but I think the material needs to stand on its own, and it makes some mistakes by not introducing those ideas.
No, definitely, I agree.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. If I want to enjoy it more, I could go back with that context.
There's something else I wanted to talk about because it does feel like we're kind of heading towards the end, and this will be kind of maybe a left turn we can get some content. I'm not looking to just pad it out. It was something that I found really interesting that caused me to do my own little deep dive into something entirely different. That I feel like it was like, oh wow, my initial perception is I think maybe kind of right. So you remember when they're going through the initial tour of the hotel together, and eventually they split up, right? And it's Halloran with Danny, and it's the two guys, I don't remember their names, is Wendy? I keep forgetting her name. I've just been calling her like the wife or the mom.
Wendy.
It was Wendy, right? Wendy and Jack are going with the two guys who like run the hotel, right? And they show them the apartment, right? And this room looks so nice for a kid, and we have a bathroom and a refrigerator and all that sort of stuff. And the final scene before they cut back to Halloran, I think it's when they cut back to Halloran starting to explain The Shining to Danny, right? They do this. He goes, oh yeah, like this is great or whatever. And I don't remember what the exact line is, but the two of them are standing next to each other, shoulder to shoulder, and they do a fade to white as they then set up the next scene. And it was so weird because I don't usually think like this exactly, but I was like, you know what? That kind of struck me as very. It reminded me of like American Gothic, the painting. The one with the farmer, and I always assumed it was his wife, but in my research, I found out that I believe it was actually intended to be his daughter. But I guess it could be read as either one. It doesn't really matter. It's not an important detail. The point is that it's a family unit. I was like, oh, that seems very American Gothic. So I started looking into the background of the painting, and I was expected to find out, like, no, I'm just crazy. It's just two people standing next to each other. And I actually feel better about my initial perception. So picture what the scene that you're actually seeing. They're zoomed in, they're shoulder to shoulder. There's very limited background, but the background is kind of a throwback environment. It's not really a contemporary thing. It's a man and his wife. I think initially it was intended to be a daughter. The actual painting itself, the guy's name was, I think Grant Wood was the guy who painted the painting. I think it was in 1930. He was just driving around, and I think it was in Pennsylvania or something like that, and he saw this, I think it's Carpenter Gothic, also known as American Gothic style house in a field. And he's like, wow, this is like a really nice, sturdy house, and it gave him inspiration or whatever. And the two people pictured are his sister and his dentist. They just, for whatever reason, fit the whatever that what he painted. And when it came out, it was actually panned by the people in the area because they thought that they were being mocked. Like, oh, because it looks very like backwoodsy, like rural, like simpleton type stuff. And the painter said no. They're standing firm before their like sturdy house, like their resilience in the face of this is 1930. This is a year or so into the Great Depression settling in, and it was meant to be a testament to their resilience. Like, we're gonna make this through our own like strong. Like, they're not slouching. They look like stead in their expression, but like we got this covered. We're gonna do what we got to do, type of thing. And it's like I said, it's meant to symbolize resilience in the face of looming trials. And in that scene, right, they're about to embark on 7 months of isolation in a hostile environment, the two of them and their kid. I think that is intentional, that they shoot that scene that way. Like, hey, we're going to make this. And then it's watching.
That's kind of cool.
Will they or won't they?
It is really cool, actually.
I like that. Nice. It
was funny because I saw it and I was like, I don't know why that struck me as that.
My art history class in high school.
What's that?
I felt like I was in my art history class in high school.
Did you
hopefully more interesting than that?
Did you look that up and find out if there's anything to that?
I didn't. I ran out of time. I had a lot to do today, including just with this sort of stuff, and it is something I want to get back into and look at.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
It took me a while to get those answers, but even if it wasn't intentional, there's so much in art. And cinema is art. This movie is its own art form. Kubrick was a hell of a director. Sometimes you subconsciously do those things, and maybe you realize it later on, or someone else realizes it later on. But when you talk about people reading into the text, whether it be an actual book or painting or movie or whatever.
No, but I found this.
So I wasn't wrong, because she just found a picture of American Gothic and they photoshopped their faces on it.
That's pretty great. That's awesome.
And he's holding an axe instead of
the axe. Yeah.
But, it's one of those things where, like, just because it wasn't the intended thing, at least maybe not consciously, doesn't mean that it isn't real and valid. Like, that sort of thing happens all the time, where someone will come to a director or a writer or whatever and say, hey, this is what I got out of this. And it's like, you know what? That wasn't my intention, but the way now that you say it, yeah, that totally fits. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's pretty great. I'm glad that you brought that up. That's really cool. Now thinking about that, it fits so well, and it makes it makes it such a great scene. If that's the case, cool. Any closing thoughts on this movie?
Well, actually, I was going to ask you. You said you wanted to talk a little bit more about like cinematography and camera.
Oh yeah.
Wait, hang on. Gianna's got a thought.
What do you got, Gianna?
I kept thinking about this. Like, there was like a camera sort of thing that they were doing that like kept making me like laugh. Like, I don't know if it was supposed to be for dramatic effect or if they like were doing that, but like they just kept like randomly like in like a kind of like, either if it was like supposed to be like, oh, this might be scary, and then it ended up not being scary. Like the zoom ins.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, I like literally laughed every time they did it.
So this kind of goes hand in hand with what Al just brought up. I feel like it has a lot to do with the face of the people as well. Like in a portrait. Right, mm-hmm. Like you can read so much into it. There are the times where they zoom in, they're generally zooming into someone's face, like very close up. So you can really he wants you to take that particular thing in, like just that reaction. They do it with Danny a lot, and it's just like I feel like it's almost like a resetting point. In case you're feeling X, this is how you need to feel right now. But that I feel like that's what like. It was almost that's what it felt like to me, was like resetting just to make sure that like everybody's on the same page. Mm-hmm. But I definitely was like, when it was happening, there was a couple of them where I did laugh out loud because it was so abrupt.
Talking about what you said about zooming in, not necessarily the action of zooming, but just holding in focus, especially like the scene we were talking about where Wendy is reading his quote unquote manuscript, which is just him in different like constructions, like physical constructions of where the sentences, like where all of them are just in line. Some of them were like pyramid diamond shapes. Like
yeah.
And I think it was cool how they must have really just had someone doing it as quickly as possible, because there was misspellings in some of them.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was kind of cool.
Which kind of helps with the whole
how crazy he is.
Yeah. But the way they shot that scene where they were shooting it from, you were in the perspective of the page, because you were looking up at her as she is looking down and reading the page, and you don't see it.
That's a great shot.
I think it's a great shot, and they kept coming back to it, and they were pivoting and showing her from behind, and then they're showing her from the side. And you're like, it's one of those things like they're building the something's gonna happen, something's gonna happen, something's gonna happen, and the music is doing like that. It's almost the Dark Knight like swell, like crescendo, like really slow burn, like swell of just like that. And they did that a few times, right? Yeah. And it was usually more when like The Shining was gonna happen, where it's just like that, and it's building. And you keep waiting for a jump scare, and none of it never pays off. And then it's finally him creeping out. It's like, I knew there was going to be something that happened.
It still wasn't even a jump scare, though, because like they did like...
Well, because they're getting
I liked it, though. That was
so good.
I definitely liked.
They're getting to the point where it's like, just do it. Just scare me already. Come on, I can take it. Do it already. Do it.
That almost like that like parallax effect where he's standing still, she's standing still, but they're sliding the camera right as his shadowy figure enters the frame. Like it's almost like a motion comic, and I love that. Like it is really creepy, and that's the scene I was talking about earlier before we got into spoiler territory, where it was just like that creeps me out, because then that's the point where you're ahead of the character that you were in the shoes of just a moment ago, and you know what's happening next, but she doesn't. It's like you can't, and you almost feel like you want to shout out to her, but you can't because it's a movie. It's very creepy. There's a lot of the color palette is consistent throughout the movie, which is really cool. Like I just feel like the cinematography and the directing was just like I really do think it's really well done. As far as the movie as a whole, I think the movie, I'm not like super into the movie as a whole, but there are aspects of it that I can really appreciate.
Well, there was another thing that I noticed that they did a lot early, and then again at the end, and you understand it especially at the end where it's during the chase sequence, not just through the house, but especially through the maze at the end, where it makes it feel like you're part of the chase.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels like you're from the perspective of I'm being chased, and sometimes it feels like you're from the perspective of the chaser. But what I found more interesting is there's times where it feels like you're being drawn in as like a party to it. Because you're already the audience. It's not just showing it to you as an audience. It feels like you're a character in the story who is like maybe you're one of the premonitions where it's like you're there. You're actively participating, but you can't affect what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that effect first, especially during the tour of the hotel. There were certain scenes where the camera is meant to feel organic, like you're walking through the tour, like you're taking a video tour. And the stakes are low then, but it feels very organic and humanistic of like, hey, we're walking through amongst this group of people doing it. And then the same thing, it feels like you're chasing Danny, but not that you're trying to catch Danny, but rather you're there to try and help protect him, but you can't. Like you're trying to run as like interference between him and Jack.
Right, you're
but
Tony.
You can't actually affect it, so instead you have to deal with that level of horror where it's like, I'm right here, exactly, but I can't help.
Yep. No, you're 100% right. It's pretty cool. They do some interesting trickery with that, and the fact that I think that's what maybe adds to it is the fact that you switch perspective so many times is interesting.
And even the same thing too, where like sometimes it feels almost like voyeuristic. Some of the shots, like the scene where he's in a like towering rage, and actually it's another one of my favorite GIFs online is when he's storming through the basement and he throws everything off of that table. And then later, when she's running through the hotel, she sees all the stuff is still laid out there, even though I think that was a different day. But the hotel is so big that like no one has walked back through there and cleaned it up. All the shit is just still sitting there.
Ah, that's pretty cool.
I will say, though, I've never understood, and I don't remember if it was in the book or not, the whole guy in a bear costume blowing that other guy.
So weird.
I have no idea what that is.
They never...
I remember... what was it? What is it you said exactly last night when we were watching it?
Well,
it is a little weird watching that with our mom in the room.
I was like, it's... Because when you were saying it before, like, I honestly didn't know what was going on. Like, I literally took, like, I was like, oh, it's just, like, two guys hanging out, one with his mask on. And then in the next one, there was a little more head movement. And I was like, oh, so he's, like, doing some,
What? Yeah, she said...
He's, like, doing some, like, pleasure action.
Yeah.
Pleasure action.
She didn't say, why is a guy in a bear costume pleasuring him? She said, why are there a guy in a bear costume and there's... I don't know how to say this. There's pleasure going on or something like that.
Because at first I literally just didn't get it at all. And then because I was just, I don't know. It just freaked me out that there was...
Or it was like a scene of pleasure or something like that.
I don't know.
Oh my god. That's so funny.
I was trying to find the best way to say it, and there is no way to say it, but...
Well, I think I said it right earlier. There's a man in a bear costume filleting another man.
Yeah, but that word didn't come to my head at that time. I was just in shock.
No, pleasure action.
Pleasure action.
Like, I wanted some explanation for that. Or is it just trying to, scare you some more? Like, I don't know what it was meant for.
That reminds me of two separate things that are kind of related. You know the comic XKCD, right?
Uh-huh.
Are you familiar with that comic?
Nope.
It's all stick figures. It's written by a guy who literally is a rocket scientist who worked for NASA. And it's funny, although a lot of the jokes are very nerdy
dark,
and mathy.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's like dark humor.
Sometimes, but that's not really like the overriding.
I feel like that's a different one I'm thinking of.
So he has a book, it might be his most recent book that he wrote, called The Thing Explainer. And it was describing incredibly complex things, but he was only able to use a set of 100 words. So he has to explain incredibly complex things in the most bland way possible. It was I think he looked online, it was the 100 most commonly used words in the English language. He could only use those words to explain 20 incredibly complex things, including literally rocket science. So it was the nail hammerer, type of thing. He had to do say things stupidly like that. And it reminded me of when you like you said, I couldn't think of a word that wasn't he was giving him a blowjob. And so instead it was the pleasure thing that's going on. You know what I mean? And it reminded me of a conversation that we were having at the bar a couple of weeks ago, where you remember you told Dominic that, and I won't say the name of the teacher, the English teacher that we all had, that you said you saw, or someone you knew saw, she had something to do with sex toys.
Oh, yes.
So give Anthony some backstory to that without using any names.
Okay.
Or names of schools.
Okay. So a teacher from my high school.
That me and Dominic also had when we were in high school.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't when I had her. I had her the year before this. But there was a big thing going around on Snapchat at the time where... So I guess there was a substitute teacher that was in that day. And she had left her dream journal or whatever sort of journal or grocery list journal. We never really found out. But it was left open. And I guess... the substitute teacher that was in there for the day never closed it or never moved it. She just kind of stared at it all day. But finally, I guess she was out of the room for a second, and one of the kids was behind the desk doing something. And they looked down at the journal, and it said, like sex toy list. And it had, like, all sorts of, like, different things. And, yeah, I probably have a screenshot of it somewhere because I was going around everywhere, like, on Snapchat. And then she had to, like, make this big apology and whatever. And
oh, my God.
So speaking of... trying to come up with different ways to say things, or that when you get the mental block and can't say the word sex toys. Dominic was recounting this story a couple of weeks ago. A few of us were out at like the bar, and he couldn't think of the word sex toys, and so instead what came out was porn devices.
Porn devices.
So
that's amazing.
That has now become his fantasy football team name, the Porn Devices.
That's
she
great.
also has a podcast.
Does she really? Wow.
She does. I don't know what it's about.
But yeah, as soon as he said it, all of us were like dying laughing. And I was like, man, I think that's got to be my fantasy football team name now. That's such a great expression. It's like, also, not that it comes up often, but if that like expression ever comes up, if sex toy ever comes up, I'm never going to be able to say sex toy from now on. I'm going to specifically call it porn devices. I think we all need to make a concerted...
You hope that it comes up more often so that you can say it?
Yes, the one time a year where you may think that expression, you need to all use porn device instead of sex toy.
That's great. Anything else? I feel like you had one more thing you wanted to bring up.
No, not really. I think that's good for me. What about you?
G?
Yeah, I didn't like her teeth, but... Just the whole movie, I thought I would get over and get used to it.
The teeth they're a little rough to get. Yeah, it's tough. They're very prominent. Very prominent. Yeah. That's all for this week's episode of Flix in the Six. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you have a movie for us to review or nuggets for us to discuss, you can send those requests to flixinthe6@spintune.com or tweet us at @thespintune. We'll be on a break for the few weeks while I travel, but Flix in the Six will return with more movie, beer, and pleasure actions.
And porn devices.
Until then, I'm Anthony Costanzo.
I'm Al Bielsi.
I'm Gianna Bielsi.
Thanks for coming out.